Frank Zane roared hysterically, but Walter Haynes's expression remained as cold as ice, completely ignoring the fiery rage erupting from his son-in-law. Frank let out a cold, bitter laugh. Right, you people wouldn't understand because in your eyes, I'm just a dog. Frank screamed at Walter, venting years of pent-up resentment. His mental state was bordering on a complete breakdown. He had nothing left to lose. Walter's face turned an iron gray, his chest heaving with anger. You scoundrel! Wendy Zane's expression shifted. She knew that if this continued, her husband was truly beyond saving. She rushed forward and slapped Frank hard across the face. Frank, that's enough. Frank, having taken the slap, simply rubbed his cheek. Wendy was furious. Frank, you bastard! Are you trying to divorce me? Wendy raised her hand to slap him again, but Frank caught her wrist in a vice-like grip, immobilizing her. Wendy, that's enough. Panic flickered in Wendy's eyes. She was genuinely afraid Frank would just leave for good. But Frank didn't look back. He strode out of the house, his figure disappearing through the doorway. Frank, Wendy wanted to chase after him, but Walter blocked her path. Come back. Let him go. Just let him go. Walter shouted in rage. Dad! Wendy's eyes welled up with tears as she looked pleadingly at her father. But Walter kept a stern face, showing no sign of being moved. The next day, Southbridge Traders. Frank Zane sat in the boss's chair in his office, a stack of resignation letters neatly piled on his desk. His office door was wide open. Outside, many employees were already packing their personal belongings, the sound of their discussions filling the air. Hey, old Lee, what are you waiting for? Waiting for severance pay? Don't even dream about it. The company has no money to pay you. Exactly. I heard the boss is going to be fined a huge amount this time. He's going to jail. This company has no future. Better to bail early. The rustling sounds drifted into the office and into Frank's ears. But he lay expressionless in his chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. Frank sat up straight and saw the HR manager, Colin Miller, walking in. Boss, this is the second batch of resignation letters for today, Colin said softly, placing a folder on top of the stack. Frank let out a cold laugh. Resignation letters? The people are already gone. Do they still need to apply? Colin remained silent. It was true. Most people just left a letter and walked out, not caring whether the company approved it or not. Some didn't even bother with the process. They just vanished without even saying goodbye. Colin took a single resignation letter out of his briefcase and handed it to Frank separately. Boss, this is mine. Frank glanced at the document and asked, Even you are leaving? You've been with me for 3 years. Do you really think I'm going to lose everything this time? A look of apology appeared on Colin's face. Boss, my mom got sick recently. She needs to be hospitalized, and it costs a lot every day. It's not that I don't believe in you, but life is forcing my hand. Frank slammed the table and stood up, pointing at Colin's nose as he cursed. Bullshit excuses. Colin was startled. He lowered his head and turned to leave. Furious, Frank grabbed the files on his desk and hurled them toward the door. After a while, a woman in a business suit walked in. Seeing the papers all over the floor, she didn't enter but stood at the door. Frank raised his head sharply, like a drowning man spotting a lifeline. Yes, understood. The female employee nodded and retreated. Frank left his desk, personally picked up the resignation letters from the floor, threw them into the trash can, and then stood before the mirror to tidy his appearance. Not long after, Charlie Boone and Joe Thompson arrived. As soon as they entered, they saw Frank sitting at the tea table, leisurely brewing coffee. Charlie was stunned. He hadn't expected Frank to be so calm at a time like this. Joe Thompson was more impatient. He asked directly, Mr. Zane, it's about time you settled that $30,000 for the goods I left with you last time, right? Hearing this, Frank's heart turned cold. The three of them used to call each other brothers, drinking and partying together countless times. In his heart, he thought these two were friends more reliable than family. But he hadn't expected that the moment they arrived, all they talked about was money. There wasn't even a fake greeting or any small talk. They didn't even bother with the disguise anymore. People really were cold, and the world was cruel. Although Frank had prepared himself for this, seeing the aggressive look in Joe's eyes still chilled him to the bone. Frank took a sip of coffee and said calmly, 30,000? Right now, let alone 30,000, I can't even take out $3,000. Then what about my money? Huh? You can't just let it go down the drain, right? Charlie said coldly. Yeah, Mr. Zane. Because of your mess, we've been dragged down too. You owe us an explanation. Frank looked up and swept his gaze over the two of them. Money? There definitely isn't any. You can stop thinking about that. What? What do you mean by that? Charlie couldn't help but glare at him angrily, demanding an answer. Frank poured coffee for both of them and said, "Mr. Boone, don't rush. I still have a way." But what filled him with despair was the cold look in Charlie's eyes and his mocking smile. Buzz. He never expected that his former brothers, his closest friends, could be so cold and heartless. What bullshit brotherhood? What friendship? Lana Cole pushed open the company doors and looked toward that office, her expression indifferent. Looking inside, she saw Frank Zane sitting at the tea table, leaning back in his chair smoking, his face full of dejection. Seeing Frank in this state, there wasn't a ripple of emotion in her heart. "You're here. You needed something?" Frank sneered. Lana's voice was cold. "If so, that's not bad either. I could drag you down to hell with me." Lana's face turned frosty as she demanded, "Like a toy you got tired of playing with? Just thrown away casually?" Frank blew a smoke ring, his voice hoarse. Suddenly, Lana stood up and slapped him across the face. "Frank, do you think everyone in the world is as filthy as you?" Lana screamed at him in anger. Frank held his face, stunned. This was the first time Lana had ever slapped him. He also understood the answer implied in that slap. Lana kept a cold face. Frank huffed, took a drag of his cigarette, and then dialed a number on his phone. Frank. Ethan Ford's voice came from the other end. "Yeah, it's me." At this moment, Ethan was in his office, standing in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window. Frank's eyes were bloodshot, his gaze empty. Hearing Ethan's laugh now didn't move him at all. Ethan laughed coldly. Frank raised an eyebrow. Ethan replied indifferently, "A world without you in it. That's what's important to me." Frank was stunned, and then immediately understood many things. To think he had been discussing with Charlie and Joe how to compete with the West Ford Group in the market later, how to knock out West Ford's computer parts business, how to destroy West Ford Electronics. Turns out, Ethan never intended to use such methods. He went for the more direct, colder, crueler way. What a ruthless young man. Seeing this, a smile actually appeared on Lana's face. She felt the thrill of revenge, like a dying tiger trapped in a cage. Ethan chuckled lightly. "Fuck." Frank violently threw his phone. It shattered into pieces upon impact. Lana stood up and said coldly, "Frank, I'm not in the mood to watch you go crazy." In the office, only Frank remained, standing alone in the same spot. Lana walked out of the building's entrance. She tightened her collar and was about to step forward to leave. A dark figure plummeted from above and smashed heavily onto the concrete ground not far in front of her. "Boss, give us 3 orders of loaded chili cheese fries, a bowl of clam chowder, and 24 garlic oysters," Wayne Tank Turner shouted to the food stall owner. "All right, you guys grab a seat first," the middle-aged owner responded. "Boss, put extra hot sauce on the oysters," Tank added, then turned back to ask Ethan, "Ford, you want anything else?" Ethan sat down and shook his head. "I'm not that hungry. If you're hungry, order more." "Henry, what about you?" Tank looked at Henry Payne. "I'm not hungry either. I just want a couple of drinks," Henry laughed. "Damn, neither of you are eating? Makes me feel bad ordering so much. Am I the only one getting fat? Can't you guys join me in getting fat?" Tank widened his eyes, looking helpless. "No." Ethan and Henry spoke in unison. "Tank." Ethan took out a pack of cigarettes and said calmly, "Yeah, found out. Someone with quite a background." "Oh, who?" Tank asked curiously. Henry also looked at him with puzzlement. "The shipping boss of the state, Walter Haynes," Ethan said with a slight frown. "Walter Haynes? Never heard of him, but if he can bail someone out of jail, he must have some serious pull." Tank mused. Ethan handed cigarettes to both of them and smiled. People who could be shipping bosses are never ordinary. Ross Lawton said that if the police station actually let him go for good, he wouldn't stand for it. Suddenly, Ethan's cell phone rang. "Mr. Ford." "Frank." Frank jumped from a building. "He committed suicide." Lana's trembling voice came from the other end. "Huh?" Ethan was stunned and stood up abruptly. Walter Haynes was in his study practicing calligraphy. He was doing it to calm his mind, and also because he didn't want to watch his daughter crying and making a scene. "Move. I want to see my dad." When his shouting voice was heard, Walter rubbed his brow and shouted to the door, "Let her in." The door was pushed open violently. When he rushed in, crying and shouting, "Dad, Dad, Frank. Frank is dead." "What? Dead?" The brush in Walter's hand shook violently. Joe Thompson threw the newspaper onto the ground in fury. Charlie Boone's face was dark. He hadn't expected Frank to choose death, leaving behind a mess of unresolved issues. The debt agreement he had tried to make him sign was now meaningless. But Joe smiled bitterly. "It's too late. Look for yourself." Charlie picked up the newspaper and glanced at it. The front page was news of Frank's suicide jump, and Southbridge traders announcing bankruptcy liquidation due to the fines. Turn to the back, the finance section, Joe replied. He flipped to that section, and a headline caught his eye. West Ford Group secures upstream supply chain, deepens cooperation with Bonagon Group. Seeing this headline, Charlie was instantly stunned. Natalie Young came to West Ford Group again. This time, she was here to attend the West Ford Group's new product launch. She sat in a corner of the venue, drinking a soda, waiting for the conference to start. Next to her, Will Grant was attaching a lens to his camera. Nat, what exactly does this West Ford e-commerce platform do? What is e-commerce? Will asked curiously. It should be electronic commerce. I heard it started overseas. I'm not clear on the specifics either. I haven't really encountered it. Natalie shook her head helplessly. The two quickly stood up, ready to take photos and notes. The person conducting the launch wasn't the president of West Ford Group, but the vice president of West Ford e-commerce, a man named Calvin Trent. This year will be the first year of the e-commerce era. Ladies and gentlemen, let us witness the robust growth of West Ford e-commerce together. Chloe Jones was packing her luggage. She turned back and asked, there are only 2 days left until New Year's. Grace, aren't you going back home? Grace Miller sat in front of her computer, typing on the keyboard, her hair a messy bird's nest. Nope, I have to hurry and finish revising the script for Tales of the West. Otherwise, I won't have time to go play during New Year's. We have a performance right after the holiday. I'm so busy I could die. Chloe looked distressed for her. We have 3 days off for New Year's. You don't need to rush to finish it in these 2 days, right? Where are you going for New Year's anyway? Don't overwork yourself. Grace turned her head, dark circles under her eyes, making her look like a panda. Can't do that. I've already planned a trip to Lake Tahoe with Mr. Ford. I heard it snowed there. Chloe paused, astounded. Oh my God, you guys are leaving the state? That's so fancy. Well, I guess that makes sense. Who told your boyfriend to be the great CEO Ford? Hearing this, a look of pride appeared on Grace's exhausted face. He can't help it. Who told my Ethan to be so ambitious? Chloe instantly felt sour. Mimicking her tone, she said, Oh my Ethan is so ambitious. I like it so much. Grace, you are forbidden from sprinkling PDA dog food on me today. Grace laughed. Hey, don't be jealous. Haven't you been getting pretty close with Tank lately? You guys go out to eat every other day. Confess for leniency, resist, and face strict punishment. Honestly now, have you two? You know. Chloe's cheeks turned red as she defended herself. No, we haven't. I'm not talking to you. I have to pack my things. Oof. Grace saw right through her cover-up and teased. Stop explaining. Explaining is just covering up. Otherwise, I'll go ask Tank later. Oh, no, don't. If you ask him, it'll be so awkward for both of us. Chloe quickly stopped her. Grace giggled. Look at you, getting all anxious. All right, I won't tease you anymore. I have to get back to work. She turned back to continue revising the script. Ethan, guess. Grace, guess if I'll guess or not. Fist, Ethan. Grace's curiosity was piqued. Her heart scratching like a cat was inside. Oof. If you won't say, then don't. I'm not curious at all. Her eyes rolled, and suddenly she clapped her hands excitedly. Hey, I got it. Got it. Got what? Who's got it? Chloe was startled by her and turned around to ask. What? Grace, you got it. How many months? Oh my God. Grace, show kakahajina. What are you thinking? What, got it or not? Not that kind of got it. Chloe rolled her eyes at her. Since it's not that, what are you so excited for? Grace blushed and pouted. I thought of what gift to give Ethan. Give him what? Chloe leaned in, her face full of gossip. Grace whispered a few words in her ear. After hearing it, Chloe's eyes went round with shock. Oh my dear Lord, Grace, you play rough. Grace clapped her hands and made an okay gesture. Easy peasy, no problem. 2 days later, New Year's Day. Holy crap, Mercedes S-Class. That's an S500, right? Whose car is that? I don't know, but I can tell you for sure, the person driving that car must be loaded. Isn't that obvious? That's not just regular rich. I haven't seen many of those even in downtown Chicago. TSK, man, I'm so envious. When will I be able to drive a luxury car like that? The driver opened the rear door, and a young couple stepped out. The young man looked scholarly and refined, while the girl stunned the crowd. She wore a light gray coat, her long, jet black hair cascading down. Her features were exquisite and delicate, her skin crystal clear like jade. Her watery eyes were incredibly spirited, radiating a youthful energy that made hearts skip a beat. Whoa, what a beautiful girl. Someone in the crowd couldn't help but gasp in a low voice. The girl gently linked her arm with the young man's, smiling happily, her eyes curving into lovely crescents. President, Here is your luggage. Do you need me to help you take it in? The middle-aged driver pushed the luggage over and bowed to ask. No need, old Lee. You go back. We can take it in ourselves, Ethan smiled. The driver nodded and got back in the car. Grace pulled her suitcase, shouting happily. Oh yeah, we're going on a trip. Going to see the snow. Ethan asked curiously. Grace, just tell me. What mysterious gift did you prepare for me? Grace gave a wicked laugh. You guess. You guess. But, even if you guess, I won't tell you. We'll talk when we get to Tahoe. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts. The flight from Chicago to Reno Tahoe is about to depart. The airplane announcement sounded. In the first-class cabin, Grace Miller was still figuring out how to fasten her seatbelt. Ethan Ford couldn't watch anymore and asked with a laugh, Dummy, you can't even fasten this? Need help? Grace puffed up her cheeks, looking indignant. You're laughing at me? It's my first time on a plane. Okay. Ethan crossed his arms and actually watched her fiddle around, unable to find the latch. Damn it, where is it hiding? Grace glared, completely out of ideas. Dummy, let me help you. Ethan took the seatbelt buckle from her hand and suddenly leaned in to embrace her. The sudden proximity made her heart race violently. Looking at Ethan's face inches away, her heart thumped and a blush rose on her cheeks. Buckling you in? What else? Then, is it in yet? Not yet. Didn't line it up. Hang on. Ethan just loved seeing her blush. Hurry up, you jerk. Are you trying to squash me? Grace glared at him in embarrassment. Click. Got it. Ethan fastened her seatbelt and let her go. She blushed and poked Ethan's forehead with her finger. You're right. You just wanted to cop a feel. You think I don't know what's in that brain of yours? Ethan revealed a meaningful smile and asked, Then do you know what I'm thinking right now? Grace's face burned. She flicked his forehead. Don't think weird things. Why did your awareness suddenly become so high? Very good. Grace praised him with satisfaction. Ethan. Oh my little Ethan, I'm so sorry. It was completely subconscious. Grace blinked her innocent eyes at him and released him. Ethan shook his wrist, grimacing. All right, wait till we get to Tahoe. See how I deal with you then. Nye, come on then. Who's afraid of who? Grace made a face at him, acting mischievous. Ethan immediately turned into the big bad wolf and pounced. The two played around together. Suddenly, a flight attendant opened the cabin door and saw the two pinching each other's noses and pulling hair. The attendant froze. These young people are really lively. Ahem, sir, miss. Do you need any assistance? The flight attendant asked with a bow, her service attitude impeccable. I didn't call for service. Ethan quickly let go, feeling a bit embarrassed, and laughed dryly. Understood. If you two need any service, please feel free to ask. It will be breakfast time shortly. What would you two like to eat? The attendant handed them 2 menus. They featured steak, red wine, Western cuisine, and various other dishes. Grace looked at the pictures of exquisite food. There were no prices listed. She whispered to Ethan, Smelly Ford. Eating on a plane is expensive, isn't it? Ethan looked at her like she was an alien. Grace, this is first class. Yeah, first class, so what? The food must be even more expensive. Grace answered very seriously. Ethan snapped his fingers, then looked at the attendant and smiled. Tell this innocent, lovely young lady what first class is. The attendant pursed her lips to suppress a smile and replied respectfully, Miss, all drinks and food in first class are complimentary. Grace. The attendant confirmed, yes, respected guest. All complimentary. Grace's jaw dropped so wide she could swallow a fist. Not much. Just over $1,000 each. Ethan shrugged and replied. Grace. Ethan snapped his fingers and ordered 2 set meals. The attendant retreated and closed the door. Only the 2 of them remained in the first-class cabin. Ethan waved his hand in front of her eyes and laughed. All right, close your mouth. This is the most luxurious flight from Chicago. Regular first class isn't even this expensive. I just wanted to give you a good experience. Grace replied in a daze. The experience is great. But I don't know why. I just feel a pain in my wallet. Ethan held her hand, smiling dotingly. As long as you're happy, spending a little money doesn't hurt. What is it? Tell me. Grace asked curiously. Ethan said mysteriously, play a game with me. If you beat me, I'll give it to you when we get to Tahoe. Game? What game? Grace asked. To get this mysterious gift, she was ready to risk it all. Ethan laughed. It's simple, just a little game. If you win, you get the gift. If you lose, you have to accept a punishment. Grace said arrogantly, Does Princess lose? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Since childhood, whenever they played games, she won far more often than she lost. so she had a psychological advantage. Ethan looked like his plot had succeeded. So confident? Then let's begin. Ethan asked the flight attendant for 3 cups and lined them up neatly on the table. I'll explain the rules first. This game is called Woof. The first cup represents walk, the second cup represents wind, and the third cup represents woof. I'll tap a cup with a pen. Whatever cup I tap, you shout the corresponding word. Total of 20 rounds. You're allowed 1 mistake. If you complete it well, you win. This tests your reaction speed. Grace nodded in realization. So that's how it's played? I got it. Bring it on. This princess's reaction speed is invincible. Ethan took out a pen and said seriously, "Okay, let's start. Watch closely." He tapped the third cup. Woof. Immediately, he tapped the second cup. Win. 2 quick taps, and she got them right. Ethan put on a mock-impressed voice. Oh, reaction speed isn't bad. Ha. Of course. Grace put her hands on her hips, looking triumphant. Next, Ethan tapped the third cup repeatedly. Woof, woof, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Under the rapid tapping, Grace subconsciously followed along, but the continuous shouting turned into a puppy barking. Hee, good puppy. I'll give you a treat later, Ethan teased. Grace realized what happened and slapped him in annoyance and shame. Okay, Smelly Ford. You tricked me on purpose. Hey, don't stop, I'm gonna keep tapping. Ethan raised the pen, laughing and brought down. Woof, Grace had to shout again, but her cheeks were puffed up in anger, looking like she wanted to eat Ethan alive. Puffed. Seeing her cute yet funny appearance, Ethan couldn't help but burst out laughing. Damn it, you're still laughing at me. Grace reached out with both hands to pinch him, but Ethan continued tapping. Grace subconsciously shouted woof again, but Ethan had tapped the second cup. Before she could react, Ethan tapped the third cup again, and she missed it. Game over. Grace Miller, you lose. Huh? Ethan laughed triumphantly. Gracie, ooh. Smelly Ford, you cheated. Ethan grinned like a villain. Hey, Grace, you have to accept it when you lose. If you don't, that's being a sore loser. Her eyes widened, then she deflated. Fine, say it. What's the punishment? Ethan snapped his fingers. Then the punishment is, you have to act spoiled and cutesy with me. It has to be super cheesy. If it's not cheesy, it doesn't count. Although Grace would occasionally act cute, it was usually unintentional. Most of the time, she showed her tomboy side and rarely acted deliberately cutesy with him. Asking her to do it on purpose would definitely give her goosebumps first. What? You want me to act cutesy? Grace stared at him. Yep. Come on, little Grace, I'm ready. Ethan nodded and laughed. Grace's face turned red. Acting cutesy on purpose was really a bit shameful. But she always kept her word. Since she lost, she had to follow the rules. She gently held Ethan's hand, gritted her teeth, and said, Little Ethan, you are just so handsome. I just like you so much. Ethan didn't get goosebumps. Instead, he felt a little spooked. Ahem, Grace, do you want to eat me? Grace nodded and said in a sweet tone, Yes, I just want to eat you up bit by bit. Eat you all up. Ethan's heart trembled. Why did it feel like she meant eating him physically? That doesn't count. Grace pinched the soft flesh at his waist. Smelly Ford, don't push your luck. Looks like getting you to act cute is pretty hard. Let's change the punishment, Ethan said, pretending to compromise. What? Grace pouted, unhappy. Yes, just like that. Don't move. Freeze. Don't move, Ethan said immediately. Grace was stunned and subconsciously froze, pouting without moving, thinking this was his new punishment. But the next moment, Ethan suddenly leaned in and kissed her. MMPH? Her eyes went wide, her heart pounding violently, accelerating like crazy. The unexpected kiss made her mind go completely blank, totally stunned. She could feel the warmth from his lips. His lips seemed to carry a current that numbed her entire body, making her go limp. She only felt her cheeks burning hot, her heart beating incredibly fast. Damn, Smelly Ford. This time, I'll let you off. Domega. She shyly closed her eyes, her long eyelashes trembling. Suddenly, ding-dong, a chime sounded at the door. Respected passengers, your meal has arrived. The flight attendant pushed a small cart in. The next moment, the attendant froze. Oops, seems I saw something I shouldn't have. Grace subconsciously pulled back, flusteredly smoothing her hair. Ahem, I'm really sorry, but I didn't see anything. I swear. The attendant smiled awkwardly, quickly holding up 4 fingers. Grace, isn't this just a guilty conscience needs no accuser? Now she was even more embarrassed and secretly glared at Ethan. But Ethan had thick skin, really thick skin, and acted like nothing had happened, chuckling lightly. Great, I'm starving. Bring it all in. The attendant quickly served the dishes and then fled as if escaping. Hee hee, young people these days are really open. Ha ha. In the cabin, Grace ate her steak while glaring at Ethan. Smelly Ford, it's all your fault. I'm dying of shame. Ethan grinned. As long as I'm not embarrassed, the embarrassment belongs to someone else. What are you afraid of? Grace blushed and scolded. You think everyone has skin as thick as yours that even a nuke couldn't penetrate? Ethan proudly replied. Thanks for the compliment. Naturally, Grace didn't want to let Ethan get away with it so easily. She had to get even. She rolled her eyes. Smelly Ford, I also have a mysterious gift for you. If you lose, you must accept this gift. Ethan, if I lose, I have to accept it? Grace, your gift sounds suspicious. Can I refuse? Grace raised the steak knife in her hand, licked it with her pink tongue, her eyes carrying traces of killing intent. What do you think? Ethan swallowed and laughed dryly. Ahem, looks like I can't refuse your kind intention. What do you want to play? Grace extended her left hand. Arm wrestling. I'll use my left hand. Ethan paused, immediately feeling his male pride insulted. He exclaimed, Little Grace, you look down on me too much. Let's use our right hands. Fine, you said it. Grace rolled up her sleeve and placed her hand on the table. Ethan put his hand up. They locked eyes, both gazes full of competitive fire. Ethan, I'll say 3, 2, 1, start. 3, 2, 1. Just as his voice fell. Bam. His hand was instantly slammed down by Grace. Ethan twitched the corner of his mouth. Now, his pride as a male really was trampled. Sure enough, you can't compare strength with Grace Miller. She possessed a monster-like strength. Don't let her thin arms fool you. Ordinary grown men probably weren't as strong as her. Ethan smiled helplessly. All right, I lose. Tell me, what is your mysterious gift? Grace grinned wickedly. I'll tell you after we get off the plane. Buzz. The plane landed smoothly at Reno Tahoe International Airport. After getting off the plane, the two took a taxi directly to the Four Seasons Hotel. In the hotel's luxury suite, they opened their respective suitcases and laid them out. Little Grace, I'll give you my gift first. We agreed. You have to wear it for a whole day. Ethan said seriously. Fine, this princess keeps her word. Grace patted her chest. Ethan reached into the bottom of his suitcase and pulled out something pink. Tajda, a pink pig head mask. Ha, it'll definitely look great on you. Ethan laughed happily, imagining Grace walking down the street wearing the pig mask. The head-turning rate would be off the charts. Grace froze. This is it. But, Smelly Ford, don't celebrate too early. It seems in some aspects, we really are on the same wavelength. Hearing this, a sense of foreboding rose in Ethan's heart. Grace actually pulled a head mask out of her suitcase too. But it was a frog head mask, and it was green. If he wore this mask out later, wouldn't it be social suicide? It seemed both of them had the same idea, one to prank the other. Damn this tacit understanding. Holy crap, little Grace, you're more ruthless than me. Ethan cried out in mock tragedy. Grace narrowed her eyes and said triumphantly, right back at you. Neither of us can judge the other. Mr. Ford, wait a bit. Then let's go to the lake and have some fun. All right, put this thing on. Wear it well. Half an hour later, two people wearing strange animal head masks walked out of the hotel, causing passersby to turn their heads all along the way. Smelly Ford, is anyone staring at us? Grace kept her head down as she walked, not daring to look around. Yes, Ethan said, pretending to be calm behind his sunglasses under the mask. How many? Everyone. Great. Grace, watch out for the telephone pole. Can't worry about that now. Walk faster. Walk faster. This is social suicide. The two quickened their pace, braving the biting cold wind, exited the hotel grounds, and headed straight for a taxi. Hiding inside the taxi, they both breathed a sigh of relief. Driver, take us to the lake, Emerald Bay area, Ethan said to the middle-aged driver in front. The driver was a balding uncle in his 40s. He looked at the two in the rearview mirror with a stunned expression. Okay, but you kids' masks are pretty trendy. After saying that, he couldn't help but laugh himself. Ethan, driver, do you want to do business or not? The driver immediately stifled his laugh. Couldn't offend the customers. Yes, definitely, leaving right now. The taxi started up and drove toward the scenic area. Inside the car, Grace looked out the window. The sky was dark and covered with gloomy clouds. Unfortunately, it wasn't snowing. The snow from before had mostly melted, leaving only patches of dirty slush. Oh, what a pity. I thought it would snow in Tahoe today, Grace lamented. Coming to Lake Tahoe for a vacation was to see the snow, but now it seemed her wish wouldn't be granted. Ethan also looked outside and comforted her. It's okay. There should still be a chance. The driver suddenly chimed in. You guys came late. It was snowing constantly for the past few days, but it stopped last night. Driver uncle, will it snow again? Grace asked, full of expectation. Who can say? The weather forecast isn't accurate. Weather is something that, besides God, nobody can guess, the driver replied casually. Ah, it snowed for days, so it will not snow for the next few days, right? Grace asked worriedly. Ethan patted her head and smiled. Uncle said it's all uncertain. If we're lucky, maybe we'll catch it. You have to think positively. Grace pouted, not wanting to spoil the mood. Fine, Mr. Ford, I'll listen to you. The car passed through the town center. Ethan looked at the buildings retreating around them, feeling somewhat emotional. At this time, the area wasn't fully built up yet. Many buildings were older, with only a few new shopping centers standing out. Everything here looked like it wasn't fully developed. Housing prices were low, probably just $100 a square foot based on the ads. But who could imagine that in 20 years, this area would become a prime real estate haven with prices skyrocketing? Real estate would usher in an explosive period. Soaring housing prices, it's a good thing, but also a bad thing. On the positive side, soaring prices indicate huge demand and a booming market. Massive housing demand pulls along all related industries: steel, cement, lumber, greatly developing construction materials and boosting the economy. Local governments can sell commercial land at higher prices, vastly expanding fiscal funds. In the period of soaring prices, huge revenue is made through selling land use rights. This money is then used in various ways to promote local industrial development, thus turning the economic cycle positively. It can be said that the real estate industry contributes greatly to the domestic economy. Blindly avoiding or discriminating against the industry is an objective. But just as everything has two sides, when the economy overheats and the real estate industry engages in enclosures, causing prices to remain high, once the price exceeds a certain psychological threshold for people, the house becomes a heavy mountain pressing on everyone's shoulders. It's even joked by most that people are born to struggle for a house. After graduating and working for 10 years, reaching prime age, they scrape together a down payment to get married and buy a house, then spend the next 30 years paying off the mortgage. This reality is tragic. Ethan had thought about entering the real estate industry, but he didn't want to push housing prices up quickly. However, he alone couldn't resist the development trend. In the rolling torrent of the times, everyone could only be swept forward. Ethan looked distant. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. Seeing him getting sentimental, Grace asked in confusion, Smelly Ford, what's wrong? Why are you sighing? Nothing, just thought of some things that make one feel powerless. Ethan laughed helplessly. Grace looked at him with disdain and said, Dummy, do you think you're an omnipotent God? As long as you're human, there will be things you're powerless against. Since you're powerless to change them, why agonize over them? Ethan was stunned. He felt her words made a lot of sense, like an awakening. Yeah, since it can't be changed, why agonize? Going with the flow, following the trend, is the right path. TSK Grace, it's rare for you to say something so philosophical, Ethan praised. Grace raised an eyebrow. What are you saying? Is it rare for me to speak with such a high level of intelligence? Ethan thought for a moment and said seriously, yes, it exists, but not much. The next second, ow, that hurts. The taxi stopped at the entrance to the Emerald Bay Scenic Area. It was 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and coupled with the cold weather, there weren't many people at the park entrance. Ethan, wearing a green frog mask, was particularly conspicuous, becoming the focus of everyone's attention. And although Grace was wearing a pink pig mask, she actually looked kind of cute. But Grace was the one more uncomfortable, keeping her head down and pulling on his arm. Let's go, Smelly Ford. Let's go check out the lake. Okay, let's go. Ethan was thick-skinned and ignored the stares. Suddenly, the roar of a motorcycle came from behind them. Before they could react, a motorcycle suddenly darted out from Grace's side. Fuck, give it here. Sitting on the back of the motorcycle was a thin man. This man suddenly grabbed Grace's small shoulder bag and yanked it away. It all happened too fast. Neither of them reacted in time. Ethan was startled. Look out. Grace almost fell because of the pull. He instinctively grabbed her, holding her tightly in his arms, protecting her with his life. But the powerful inertia still dragged them both down, slamming them heavily onto the ground. By the time Grace came to her senses and lifted her head, the motorcycle had already sped several meters away. She gritted her teeth and wanted to chase, but looking down, she saw Ethan grimacing in pain. Smelly Ford, are you okay? Grace panicked a little and quickly got up from him. It was entirely because Ethan had acted as a meat cushion. Otherwise, she probably would have broken a few bones from that fall. No, I'm fine. Your mask saved me, hiss. Ethan struggled to get up, rubbing the back of his head, finding a bump had formed. Luckily, the frog mask protected his head. Without it, he would have definitely been bleeding. Damn it, Smelly Ford, you wait here. I'll go get revenge for you, Grace said angrily. Ethan quickly held her back, persuading, those snatch thieves don't care about their lives, and they might have weapons. Don't go, it's dangerous. Money can be earned again, but if your life is gone, it's all gone. Besides, they must have run far away by now. Just as his voice fell, suddenly there was a loud crash ahead, as if something had collided. The two turned to look and saw that the motorcycle had somehow crashed into the park wall. The two wheels had flown off on the spot, and the two robbers were thrown upside down. Look, didn't they fail to get away? Let me go deal with them. Grace rolled up her sleeves and ran over. Afraid she would get into trouble, Ethan quickly followed. At this moment, the two robbers were helping each other stand up. Fuck your mother. Who the hell put a steel pipe in the middle of the road? The thin, dark-skinned man who grabbed the bag cursed loudly. People around stared at the two, but no one dared to speak up, and no one dared to step forward to bring them to justice. Avoiding trouble is the norm. Heroes are a minority after all. Most people didn't have that kind of courage and guts. Brother Bill, stop talking, let's go. A flat-headed man wearing a gray jacket shouted, pulling him. The gray-jacketed man was hopping as he walked. His left leg seemed to be broken, making him grimace in pain. Damn it, wrecked my motorcycle, fuck, the man called Psycho Bill complained. The two supported each other and were about to leave when suddenly a figure blocked their path. Snatched this princess's bag and thought you could run? Grace rubbed her fists, staring at them coldly. Seeing that the pursuer was a girl, and a fair, tender one at that, Psycho Bill instantly felt amused. Yo, what's up, little lady? Want to ask me out to dinner? If you like to play, Big Brother can play with you. Bill laughed lewdly, his eyes scanning her obscenely. Grace rubbed her fists, cracking her knuckles. How do you want to die? Hearing this, Bill couldn't help but laugh loudly. Me? I want to die of pleasure. Little sister, do you dare to get rough with Big Brother? Ethan rushed over and protected Grace behind him. Little Grace, don't be impulsive. Yo, someone dares to play the hero, saving the beauty. You really need a beating. I want to see what you're capable of. Bill sneered and rushed forward, throwing a punch at Ethan. Ethan gritted his teeth and actively met the attack, wrapping his arms tightly around the incoming arm, shouting loudly, I'll hold him. Grace, you go. Go call the police. Ethan wasn't cowardly at all. He just didn't want to gamble with his life. If these two guys had knives, it would be a tragedy. But for Grace, he could risk his life. The surrounding crowd gasped when they saw the fight start. Suddenly, at this moment, Grace made her move. Grace pulled Ethan away and then delivered a powerful elbow strike to Psycho Bill. Pow! Bill was hit in the stomach by the elbow strike, knocking the bile out of him. He spat out a mouthful of sour water. Go! Grace used a judo throw, grabbing Bill's arm and hurling him violently. Thud! Bill smashed heavily onto the ground, rolling twice. Grace's entire movement was fluid and extremely spectacular. Instantly, the scene fell into a dead silence. Everyone around was dumbfounded, jaws dropping in shock at Grace. Holy crap, that skill. That was awesome. This girl is amazing. Looks like a pro. Incredible. My God, a modern-day warrior woman. She knows kung fu. This beauty is badass. The crowd erupted in an uproar, discussing spiritedly. Seeing Grace, the men felt a bit ashamed. Ethan's eyes were wide and round. He opened his mouth, not knowing what to say, and could only give a thumbs up. Badass. Grace clapped her hands and laughed lightly. Little punk, if this princess doesn't show her power, you think I'm Hello Kitty? Dare to grab my bag? Then I'll give you some color to see. The gray-jacketed man felt a chill in his heart and quickly helped Bill up. Brother Bill, are you okay? Bill was dizzy, shaking his head before sobering up a bit. I'm fine. Fuck, this chick is spicy. Damn it, I'll kill her. Bill grabbed a brick from the ground and charged at Grace. Being thrown by a woman was too fucking humiliating. If word of this got out, how could Psycho Bill still stand tall in this area? He had to get his reputation back. Grace raised an eyebrow, unafraid of the incoming brick. Looking for death. Grace shouted low, dodging the frontal attack, and stomped down heavily, landing right on Bill's toes. Bill, noil de Q. Ow! A mournful scream echoed all around. But before he could scream for 2 seconds, it came to an abrupt halt because Grace delivered a knife-hand strike to his throat. Gah! Bill's face turned red, unable to speak, unable to make sound. Ethan twitched the corner of his mouth. Just looking at it hurt. The surrounding tourists also subconsciously shrunk their necks, as if the chop had landed on their own throats. Having taken 2 hits, Bill completely lost his ability to move. He staggered, clutching his throat, looking at Grace with a face full of fear. This girl is too terrifying. Kicked an iron plate this time. With just that, you dare play with bricks? Grace said disdainfully. As soon as her voice fell, Grace grabbed Bill's arm and executed a super shoulder throw, a windmill toss. Bill was swung up and then smashed heavily onto the concrete floor. Bam! Crack! A loud noise mixed with the chilling sound of breaking bones. Bill let out a miserable howl and almost fainted. Seeing the situation was lost, the remaining gray-jacketed accomplice immediately tried to run, but as soon as he turned around, he ran headfirst into the fervent crowd. Seeing the danger was gone, the surrounding tourists decided it was time to be brave safely. They swarmed up and pinned the gray jacket firmly to the ground. Quick, take him to the police station. Robbery in broad daylight. What scumbags? Let me give them a couple of kicks. The crowd was furious, surrounding the 2 robbers and giving them a beating. Grace took back her bag and patted the dirt off it. Robbing this princess's bag. Serves you right. Ethan twitched his mouth. Messing with Grace was indeed looking for death. It seemed he had still underestimated Grace's combat power. Grace, that was still too risky just now. But luckily some kind person put a steel pipe in the road. Otherwise they really would have gotten away. We really should thank that Samaritan, Ethan lamented. Haha, no need to thank me. Acts of bravery are what we should do. A hearty voice sounded behind Ethan. Ethan found the voice familiar. He turned around abruptly, and when he saw the person, he was dumbfounded. Holy crap, it was him. The man behind him had very distinctive features. To put it politely, he had character. To put it bluntly, he looked a bit like an alien. Seeing Ethan staring at him with a stunned expression, the man was also taken aback and asked in confusion, Hey, young man, do you know me? Have we met? Ethan laughed dryly. Ooh, no. It's our first time meeting. The man smiled warmly and said, Hi, then I guess it's fate. By the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Jack Mars. How should I address you, young friend? Ethan Ford. Haha, a very poetic name. Listening to your accent, you don't sound like locals, right? No, we're from Chicago. We came here specifically for the New Year holiday. Welcome, warm welcome. Although you encountered some unpleasantness, overall, Tahoe is still very nice. The lake, the mountains, the scenery, it's all here. Jack Mars laughed, his tone carrying a friendliness that made him feel very enthusiastic. But Ethan was just staring at him constantly, not paying attention to what he was saying. Jack felt a bit creeped out by Ethan's gaze and asked again, Ethan, my friend, do you really know me? Ethan withdrew his gaze and said seriously, No, it's truly our first time meeting. He said that, but how could Ethan not know the famous Jack Mars? Jack Mars, a legendary business figure, founder of Amazon, in this timeline's context, leading the largest IPO in history, renowned globally. This was a man who changed the commercial landscape, an idol worshipped by countless internet people. However, Ethan wasn't among the worshippers. He was more curious about Jack Mars, curious about what kind of person he was. What kind of person could create such an enterprise? To run into him here at Lake Tahoe was a small world indeed. Jack looked at his watch and said, Hey, young friend, I have something to do later and am in a rush. I'm afraid I can't accompany you to give your statements. Sorry about that. If you need any help later, you can call me. Here is my card. Jack took a business card from his pocket and handed it to Ethan. Ethan took it politely with both hands and glanced at it. Amazon Chairman, Jack Mars. However, the quality of the card was indeed not great. It looked very ordinary, but it was understandable. The current Amazon was still in a tumultuous phase. Founded in '99, in this specific context/timeline adaptation, receiving investment in 2000, the limelight was bright, but ultimately, it was still burning cash. Money had to be spent on the cutting edge. Young friend, let's meet again if fate allows. Jack said his goodbyes and left. Ethan put away the card, feeling inexplicably expectant. Now that West Ford Group had also entered the e-commerce field, there were conflicts in certain businesses, like P12.My, but Ethan was very interested in his company. If there was a chance to control such a company, wouldn't that be interesting? Just thinking about it was exciting enough. Smelly Ford, what's wrong? Do you know that person? Grace leaned over and asked. Don't know him, but I will know him in the future. Ethan laughed. All right, let's send these 2 robbers to the police first. By the time they finished the procedures at the police station and gave their statements, it was already afternoon. Night was falling, and the world was dim and obscure. Dim streetlights illuminated the sidewalk. The north wind whistled, piercingly cold. Sigh, what a buzzkill. I wanted to go walking around the lake, but my good mood for the day was ruined by those two guys. Oomph. Grace walked with hands in her pockets, pouting her cute little mouth, muttering. Ethan gently put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her into his embrace, soothing her. Cheer up. Aren't I still here by your side? Hearing this, Grace smiled sweetly, finally revealing a happy smile. True, I still have you, Smelly Ford. Although today was a buzzkill, seeing Ethan right by her side gave her a sense of security and happiness. It seemed some cheesy romance lines were right after all. As long as the person you love is by your side, anywhere can be home. She suddenly stood on her tiptoes and kissed Ethan on the cheek. Hee hee, Smelly Ford. Consider this your reward for cheering me up today. Grace laughed happily, her eyes curving into lovely crescents. Ethan pretended to keep a straight face. What? Just one kiss? No way, absolutely not. Grace blushed and spat. Hey, Smelly Ford, what do you want? You're being so needy. No, I'm not. I just want you to kiss me again. Ethan acted pretentious. Ugh, I'm telling you, don't push your luck. I'm losing out big time here. No way. Grace turned her head away. Then I'll just have to do it myself, Ethan said, then suddenly planted a loud kiss on her cheek and ran away immediately after. Thrilling. Smelly Ford. Stand right there. Grace shouted in embarrassment. The two played and chased, the streetlights stretching their shadows long. Joyful laughter echoed in the empty street. Suddenly, Ethan stopped. Grace didn't brake in time and crashed headfirst into his chest. She asked in confusion, Smelly Ford, what's wrong? Ethan reached out his hand, looking up at the pitch-black night sky, murmuring, Grace, it seems. It's snowing. Grace looked up, and a snowflake landed right on her exquisite nose, melting instantly. But following there were thousands, countless crystal snowflakes drifting down from the night sky. Ah, it's snowing. Grace excitedly hugged Ethan, jumping up and down, looking exactly like a child seeing snow for the first time. Ethan watched as the snowflakes instantly decorated the eaves of the houses with a white line. The ground turned white, the world wrapped in silver. Yeah, it's snowing. So beautiful. Ethan sighed with a smile, holding Grace tightly in his arms. Grace, being able to watch the snow with you is a very happy thing. Grace smiled sweetly. Smelly Ford, me too. The two embraced under the streetlight, snowflakes drifting like blessing petals. At this moment, both were happy. After hugging for a long time, suddenly both their stomachs let out a grumble of protest. Puffed. They looked at each other and laughed. They had been so focused on the snow, they were starving. Let's go eat. Grace waved her hand. And after eating, Ethan smiled wickedly. Go back to the room and sleep, of course. Grace said as a matter of course. Ethan grinned. Then, how about we eat in the hotel room? After eating, it's convenient for exercise. Exercise? What exercise? Grace tilted her head, asking in confusion. Ethan pondered for a moment and replied, uniform motion and accelerated motion. Grace suddenly had some images flash through her mind. Immediately, her cheeks flushed red, and she grabbed his ear in embarrassment. Pervert, can't your brain hold anything decent? Hey, how easy? This is very decent. Is there anything more decent in the world than this? Ethan defended himself. Grace held onto his ear, her face turning into a red apple, and spat. Fallacies. I'm ignoring you. Besides, these few days, you won't get the chance. Hearing this, Ethan immediately understood what she meant, and his face fell. Damn it, this is our rare trip alone. Just thinking about it, Grace meant that her relative had come to visit. Sigh, what a waste of this rare 3-day holiday. Seeing his unconcealed disappointment, a flash of cunning passed through Grace's eyes. She patted his head and soothed, Hey, Smelly Ford, don't be so disappointed. In the future, there will be chances. Ethan smiled. All right, no need to comfort me. But you, be careful not to catch a cold these days, and you're not allowed to eat cold things, especially ice cream. Saying that, Ethan took off his scarf and carefully draped it over her shoulders. It's snowing, don't freeze. Grace felt warm inside. She stuck out her little pink tongue and made a cute face. I know. You're as nagging as my mom. Isn't it all because I care about you? Let's go, you must be starving. Let's go back to the hotel and eat something good. Ethan put his arm around her shoulder, shielding her from the wind and rain. Depending on each other, they walked in the sky full of snow, sometimes whispering, sometimes laughing joyfully. Returning to the Four Seasons Hotel, they went straight to the dining place, the Tahoe Taste. This restaurant, located within the hotel, was a top-tier fusion restaurant in the area, ranked in major food magazines, a high-end consumption venue. As soon as Grace entered the restaurant, she was shocked by the golden splendor before her eyes. Looking around, everything was golden. The walls were decorated with dark gold embroidery, and overhead were circles of crystal chandeliers composed of countless crystals. Under the light of the crystal lamps, the tables and chairs covered with Suzhou embroidery cloth looked even more noble. The first feeling the whole restaurant gave was luxury. Every detail highlighted luxury. Please come this way." The beautiful waitress bowed to indicate the way. Led by the waitress, the two came to a window seat. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling window, they could see the snowy scenery of the lake outside. Although it was night, the lights shone on the water surface, sparkling with ripples, creating a unique view. "What would you two like to eat? Here is the menu. We are a fusion restaurant, offering both Western and Chinese cuisine. The glazed salmon is one of our signatures." The waitress introduced. Grace opened the first page and saw the set meal price, her eyes instantly widening. She quickly leaned into Ethan's ear and whispered, "Smelly Ford, this hotel is too expensive. The lowest set meal is $300. Little Grace, coming out with me, do you still need to care about money? Don't you think about who your boyfriend is?" Ethan laughed softly. Grace pouted, "But I still think it's expensive. I can't bear to part with the money." Ethan flicked her forehead and teased, "Little dummy, are you a country bumpkin? Order freely. This amount of money really isn't a thing." Grace flipped through a few more pages, dazzled by the pictures. Apart from Western steak, she hadn't eaten any of it. This gave her a bit of choice paralysis. Ethan directly arranged the most expensive $1,000 set meal for her, saving her the trouble. Not long after, the appetizers were served. Apart from the caviar appetizer, there was Chardonnay poached shrimp. Grace looked at the tiny portion of food in front of her and was dumbfounded. Ordering something for hundreds of dollars and getting this? Just this? The waitress on the side introduced. This dish is called Chardonnay poached shrimp. The tea used in the infusion is private reserve, and the shrimp are New Zealand scampi. These shrimp live in the deep sea and are difficult to catch, but the taste is extremely delicious. Our restaurant doesn't have these top-quality scampi every day. They need to be pre-ordered from overseas. Grace was shocked after listening to the waitress's introduction. So this was the legendary premium seafood. No wonder it sold for so much. There was some logic to it. Starving, right? Eat up, Ethan said with concern. Grace used chopsticks to pick up a piece of shrimp meat and put it in her mouth. The fragrance of the wine/tea perfectly set off the extreme sweetness of the scampi. Sweet, but not greasy, fragrant upon entry. The shrimp meat was very elastic to chew. Really delicious. But this taste was like another flavor of money. Grace felt a secret pang of heartache. That one bite just now probably cost about $100, right? Delicious is delicious, but expensive is truly expensive. As soon as she finished tasting one dish, the waitress served the next, one after another. The $1,000 set meal had a full 28 courses. Just eating this meal took nearly 3 hours. After finishing the meal, Grace slumped in her chair, holding her stomach, burping, and lamented, "Sigh. This meal felt like I ate a whole year's worth of grocery money." Ethan drank his tea to clear his palate and laughed. "Little Grace, you should think of it this way. The richer you are, the more you have to consume. Consume hard, spend the money, so other people have a chance to make money. If rich people saved all the money they earned and didn't spend it, the money would lose liquidity and never return to other hands, and social wealth appreciation wouldn't be realized." Grace listened, half understanding, a bit dazed. Because she really didn't have that much money, so she couldn't experience that state of mind and logic. After eating, the two returned to the hotel room. Although it was very cold outside and snowing, the suite was warm as spring. The heating was on full blast, and no cold could be felt in the room. Little Grace, tonight, we sleep in one bed." Ethan sat on the bed, patting it with a wicked laugh. Grace blushed but still said domineeringly, "I'm sleeping with me. Be careful you don't fall under the bed in the middle of the night." I'll go change clothes first." Ethan was stunned. Why was this girl acting so strange? Why go change clothes before showering? Grace dragged her suitcase and ran into another room of the suite, then slammed the door shut with a bang and locked it. What's the situation, making it so mysterious? Ethan scratched his head, puzzled. Inside the room, Grace put the suitcase on the floor, then took out a black bag from the bottom, which contained a certain piece of clothing. Smelly Ford, definitely never expected that this is the real gift. She clutched the bag, her cheeks flushed red. She jumped onto the bed, buried her head in the quilt, kicking her feet in the air. Do I really have to listen to Chloe and wear it? It's simply dying of shame. No? Onaji. Grace Miller took a moment to steady her nerves, then sat up in bed and unzipped the black shopping bag. She pulled out a sheer black silk nightie, the lace patterns catching the light in a way that made her pulse quicken. Do I really have to wear this? She whispered, her cheeks flushing as she hesitated. Next, she fished out a pair of black stockings, so thin they made her feel exposed just looking at them. Oh man, why did Chloe pick something this skimpy? But how do I even put this on? Like regular tights. She laid the outfit on the bed, puzzling over the pieces. It seemed like a two-piece set with some straps, but no tags or instructions on how to fasten them. After fiddling around without success, she gave up and dialed Chloe Jones. The call connected quickly, and Chloe's excited voice came through. Grace, how's the getaway date going? Having fun? Grace pouted. It's been great so far, but... Chloe, about that outfit you picked for me. How do I even wear it? Chloe paused. You don't know? Grace rolled her eyes. I've never wore anything like this. How would I? Chloe thought for a second. Honestly, I don't either. Grace facepalmed. Then what do I do? What do you mean? Wing it, Chloe laughed. Grace glared at the phone. This was your dumb idea. Okay, Chloe said. Look, it's just for show. It doesn't have to be perfect. Heck, maybe Ethan would prefer you in nothing at all. Grace's face burned. What? Chloe, you're getting way too bold. Chloe giggled. We're adults, Grace. No need to be shy. If I had a boyfriend in the honeymoon phase, I'd have him stocking up on ginseng supplements. Not like you two, all hesitant and cute. Come on, it's the new millennium. Grace paused, then teased back. Wow, you're intense. Maybe I should have Ethan send a few pounds back for Tank. What? Don't drag Tank into this. Stay on topic. You figured out. You're a grown woman. Can't handle a little outfit. Grace sighed, staring at the bed. Fine. I was hoping you'd know, but whatever. I'll improvise. Chloe chuckled. Good luck, Grace. Go get him. Seal the deal. Grace blushed furiously. Yeah, right. Whatever. Try it on. I'm calling a friend who wore something similar for her guy. She might have tips. After hanging up, Grace picked up the nightie and tried slipping it on. The sleeve felt tight, so she tugged a bit, and rip. The fabric tore. Her eyes widened. What the heck? This quality is garbage. She tried the other sleeve gently, but the underarm split anyway. Seriously? It's falling apart. Frustrated, she yanked it off, and the back ripped wide open. Now it was just rags. Ugh, what a waste. Her phone rang. Chloe again. Grace answered immediately. Chloe, what kind of junk did you buy? It tore like paper. Chloe sounded surprised. Wait, really? I just talked to my friend. She said these are designed to rip easily. It's meant for your partner to tear off. Grace blinked. What? It's tear-away lingerie. Yeah, Chloe said. She told me you just slip it on loosely or drape it. Tie the straps in simple knots to connect the top and bottom. Then strut out, and no guy could resist. He'd pin you down, turn into a beast, and shred it to pieces. That's the point. Grace felt her face heat up. This was way too wild. Oh my gosh, Chloe, you should have asked sooner. Now it's ruined. Chloe was stunned. You tore it? Well, it might not have the full effect, but just drape it anyway. Drape it? That works. Absolutely, Chloe confirmed. Okay, I'll try. Grace hung up, determined. Back at Chloe's place, she lounged in her chair, sipping coffee with a smug grin. That should do it. As long as Grace wears her basics underneath and drapes that thing. Ethan's probably going to have a nosebleed. Go for it, girl. Meanwhile, Grace examined the torn nightie on the bed, wondering how to make it work. Suddenly, she thought of a cape. Since it's wrecked anyway, why not? She flipped it and draped it over her shoulders like a cape, tying the straps in a knot. Checking the full-length mirror, her sailor outfit peeked out beneath the black silk cape. It had a quirky vibe, kind of cool but off somehow. She couldn't pinpoint why. Is this really okay? She doubted herself, but with it torn, options were limited. Oh right, the stockings. She slid them on like pants. Rip, the thread snapped. No way. These are tear-away too. She grimaced. Once on, the stockings were full of holes, like they'd been through a war. Whatever. First time in fishnets. Ethan should count his lucky stars. Outside the room, Ethan was on the hotel landline. Yeah, everything's set. Mr. Ford, as requested, all the arrangements are ready. Staff's in position. Great, thanks. I'll let you know. No problem, sir. Anything else, just say the word. Ethan hung up, leaning back with a grin, humming a tune. Tonight's real surprise was what he'd planned for Grace. Their first trip together deserved a memory to last. Just to make her smile. He chuckled to himself. Little Gracie's got no idea. Can't wait to see her face, shocked and touched. The door creaked open. Ethan, I'm coming out. But Close your eyes first. He paused, confused. Huh? Eyes closed. Come on, just do it. Fine. Ethan covered his eyes with his hands, but peeked through his fingers. Grace's head poked out, spotting him instantly. Uh-huh. Knew you'd cheat. Her cheeks were pink as she glared. He grinned sheepishly. That busted. Okay, for real this time. He squeezed his eyes shut. In the dark, he heard her tiptoe out, steps getting closer until they stopped right in front of him. Okay, you can look now. Her voice was bright, a bit nervous. Ethan, this is your surprise. He lowered his hands and opened his eyes. First thing he saw was her light blue sailor top, cinching her waist. Then up higher. Wait, was that a black cape draped over her? Yeah, definitely a cape. Her hands were on her hips, trying to look bold, face flushed with a shy pout. So, pretty hot, right? She flourished the lace cape, striking what she thought was a seductive pose, winking repeatedly. Ethan stared, wide-eyed, at a loss for words to describe the bizarre getup. Yeah, I guess. Grace froze, then spun in place. What? Isn't this tempting enough? He glanced down and noticed the black fishnets, riddled with runs and holes, white skin peeking through like abstract art. But hey, her long legs looked amazing anyway. Gasia. If you're short on cash for clothes, just tell me. These stockings are trashed. Let's skip them? I'll buy you new ones later, he said seriously. Grace, Omega. She grabbed his shoulders, exasperated. Ugh, is this outfit a total flop? Zero appeal? Not even a spark of wild side. Ethan blinked, confused. Wild side. She held out the fabric. Yeah, don't you wanna rip it? He focused and realized. That's no cape. It's sexy lace lingerie, just worn like one. But why rip it? His mind flashed to those adult films they'd watched. Rip it? Whoa, Grace, you into that kind of rough stuff? He gaped at her. Unbelievable, this shy girl had such a bold streak. But he kind of dug it. Her blush deepened, but she tilted her chin defiantly. Yeah, so what? I'm feeling adventurous. You got a problem with that? Ethan pieced it together and burst out laughing. Gracie, who put you up to this? Chloe, ha, I'm dying. He doubled over, stomach aching from laughter. Grace wanted to vanish. She yanked off the cape. You're laughing? Ugh, I'm gonna shred you. She pounced, pinching his cheeks and stretching them into a goofy face. Stop. I surrender. No more laughing. She released him, puffing her cheeks adorably. He rubbed his face, still smirking, nearly cracking up again. Still giggling. She narrowed her eyes. He bit his lip. Nope. I've had training. Won't laugh no matter what. Unless. I can't hold it. Ha. He lost it again. Arg. Ethan, you're done. She lunged, trying to cover his mouth. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. Okay, truce. Seriously now. Jerk, what's serious? Her eyes sparkled as she glared. He stroked her hair. Silly girl. You look great in anything. You don't need to force this for me. The real you. Natural and pure. That's what I love. Skip the sexy vibe. She pouted. But everyone says cute doesn't hold a candle to sexy. I just wanted to try it for you. Didn't know if you'd like it. Ethan's heart warmed. So that's why. She did it to make him happy. This girl's too sweet. He pinched her nose affectionately. You don't have to push yourself for me. Really? She asked, surprised. Duh, because I love you. I'll take all of you, good, bad, cute, not so sexy, whatever. Don't change for me. The real Gracie is who I fell for. She buried her face in his chest, beaming. But then she looked up, suspicious. Wait, you just said I'm not gentle? Jerk, where am I not gentle? Explain. He winced. Ouch. Gracie, you're the gentlest ever. Number one. That's better, she huffed. So, can you stop pinching my side? She let go, grinning. Fina, I'll try to be a tiny bit gentler with you. Something about that sounded more like a warning. He straightened up. Gracie, we sync up on some things. Actually, I have a surprise for you too. A surprise. Grace blinked, not expecting Ethan to have something else up his sleeve. Was this some kind of mind meld? He tweaked her cute button nose, teasing. Yup, tonight's the real gift I've got for you. Come on, let's check the balcony. But it's chilly out. Grab your down jacket first. Don't catch a cold. Grace hopped off him, buzzing with excitement. Okay, changing now. She skipped her coat, slipping it on while prying. Tell me, what is it? You're such a tease. Spill already. Ethan threw on his jacket too, playing coy. You'll see. No peeks. Ruins the surprise. You're the worst. She shot him a playful glare. Haha, and you love me anyway? He bantered. Look at you, all smug. Dressed, she linked arms with him, beaming. Ready, mister. Forward. He nodded, and they slid open the balcony door. Outside, light snow swirled. Distant lights along Emerald Bay formed a glowing chain, reflecting on the water like poetry. But beyond that, it was dark, nothing special. Where's the gift? The surprise? Grace scanned around, even leaning over the railing to peer below. Pitch black down there. Ethan patted her shoulder, smiling. Hang tai. I had folks prepping this a week ago. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Hey, Manager Wills? We're good to go. Yes, Mr. Ford. He hung up and joined her at the railing, gazing at the snow. Little Gracie, isn't this snow beautiful? Yeah. Hope there's some build-up tomorrow. We could have a snowball fight. She reached out, catching flakes that melted instantly. Whoa, so cold, first real snow. Up close, it was magical, a memory forever. Want colorful snowflakes? He asked, grinning. Yeah, right. Snow's white. Where'd colors come from? She eyed him skeptically. Silly. Watch me pull off some magic. Magic? She tilted her head. Out on Emerald Bay, 10 boats glided toward the hotel's view. Manager Wills, we're in position, a suited young man said, stepping from the cabin. At the bow stood a slick-haired, middle-aged man, the Four Seasons VIP coordinator, handling High Roller's whims. But this Ford guy's request? A first. To pull off the surprise, he'd jumped through hoops, permits, supplies, chartering boats, a week of prep. Signal them, Wills said calmly. Yes, sir. The young man ducked back in. Soon a bright red light flashed rhythmically from the lead boat. On the balcony, Grace spotted the pulsing red glow. Hey, Ethan, look. Lights on the water, twinkling like stars. So pretty. Ethan saw the signal. Showtime. He took her hand. Little Gracie, eyes peeled. Your gift's about to drop. Huh? She looked puzzled. Whoosh, boom. A massive firework exploded over the bay, showering red sparks that lit everything up. The burst reflected on the glassy water, like dual worlds in bloom. Breathtaking. Grace jumped at the noise, clutching his arm, but stared in awe. Oh my, gorgeous. She murmured, entranced. More fireworks launched, painting the sky in rainbows, tinting the snow and shores in hues. Unreal beauty. Grace covered her mouth, tears welling, happy ones. Ethan did all this. For her. This view etched into her forever. Ha, little Gracie, like my magic? He asked. She turned, tears streaming, nodding emphatically. Amazing. But this must have cost a fortune. He wiped her cheek gently. Worth every penny if it makes you smile. Because I love you. Silly, why cry? She laughed through tears, punching his chest lightly. You and your sweet talk, but I love it. Thanks, Ethan, for the gift. She wrapped her arms around his neck, tiptoeing for a kiss. They embraced on the balcony, fireworks silhouetting them against the wall. Along the bay, couples and tourists paused, phones out, capturing the magic. On the lead boat, Wills watched the display, smiling. Mr. Ford and Ms. Miller must be thrilled. Bless him, may they stay happy. He turned to the assistant. Light it up. Every lamp on the hotel and bay. Yes, sir. The young man phoned it in. Mid-kiss, they heard switches flipping, brightness flooding around. Grace pulled back, flushed, glancing out. The whole hotel and bay glowed. The water mirrored it all, snow-capped edges linking in white ribbons. Stunning. Ethan stroked her hair. Little Gracie, one more gift. More than this, she gasped. Yup. He clapped over the railing. Moments later, a heart-shaped balloon bouquet rose from below, vibrant hydrogen balloons. Grace gasped, hand over mouth, thrilled. He planned this too. Below hung a basket with a red jewelry box. Ethan grabbed it, opening to reveal a delicate pink bracelet, strung with pink beads, centered by a sparkling pink diamond. Besides the diamond, the beads are just crystal. I carved our names on each, had them polished. 19 total. For our 19 years together, my childhood sweetheart. May this bracelet stay with you, like I'll always be by your side. My promise to you. My promise to you. Ethan's words rang true, firm, and full of love. Grace's heart swelled, nose tingling, tears flowing again. Jerk, Ethan, this bracelet's mine now. I'll wear it forever, like you'll never escape my grasp. She laughed through sobs, snatching it and slipping it on. If you better mean it, no leaving, or else. She wiped her eyes, mock stern. He pulled her close. Deal. I'm yours for life. She hugged tight, unwilling to let go. Fireworks faded, lights dimmed, the bay quieted, wind whispering. Ethan, I'm sleepy. Her cheeks pink, eyes soft with invitation. He chuckled. All right, darling, bedtime. He scooped her up princess style, carrying her inside and laying her gently on the bed. Lights out, room dark, heavy breaths, and rustling clothes. Wait, little Gracie, isn't it that time of the month? His voice puzzled in the shadows. Dummy, that was a fib, she whispered shy. You little liar. Now I'm going to devour you. Roar. He pounced like a wolf on a lamb. Outside, snow fell, wind howled. Inside, passion bloomed, romance filling the air. That night, cold snow melted into warm streams. That night, two souls merged in harmony. Next morning, 10 a.m., sunlight filtered through sheer curtains onto the bed. Grace's lashes fluttered, eyes opening to Ethan's sleeping face. They were inches apart, her head on his arm, bare and nestled close. "This big lug, out like a light?" She smiled happily, sneaking a pinch on his nose. He stirred, gasping, waking him. She yanked back, pretending to sleep, heart racing. But he settled, dozing off again. "Huh, back asleep? Guess last night wore him out too." Her face reddened at the memories, wild moments flashing back. How many rounds? 5? 6? 8? She lost count, but it was intense. Ugh, why count? So embarrassing. All? Okay. She yanked the covers over her head, wincing at a slight ache. Ouch. Her squirming roused him for real. She shut her eyes tight, feigning sleep, pulse pounding. "Little Gracie, up," he murmured. She stayed still. He watched, amused. "Playing possum, huh? Time for payback. Ah, still out. Lazy bones. Let's check if this lazy one's packing on pounds. Might be time to trim." His cold hand slipped under the warm covers, grazing her. "Ah," she yelped, eyes flying open. "Ethan, you iced me." She retaliated, tickling him. "Ha ha. Stop, Gracie." "No. Ha. You asked for it. Take this." "Ah. Hey, hands off there. You started it." Time to reestablish some husbandly authority. Husbandly what? "Rar, Gracie. For your future bliss, back off." Husbandly authority? Looks like you've got energy left." She climbed on top, blushing, locking eyes. Little Gracie, what are you up to?" He froze. Obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4, round 2. She yanked the covers over them both. "Too far, Gracie, it's on." Noon, in the luxury suite, Ethan was dressed and groomed, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Sharp suit, hair slicked back. He looked young, but his eyes held maturity, even a hint of world-weariness. "Little Gracie, how's this outfit?" He turned to her, still lounging in bed, grinning. She stretched lazily, a bit worn out. Glancing over, she smiled sweetly. "Looking sharp, Mr. Ford. Real vain today, huh?" He snapped his fingers. "Your taste improving. Up, lazy bones. Hungry? Let's grab brunch." Her face flushed. "Whose fault is that dragging it out? I'm all sore. Carry me." She held out her arms, pouting. He chuckled, scooping her from the sheets, kissing her forehead. "There, princess." Hit the shower. Blushing, she scampered to the bathroom. Half-hour later, they linked arms and headed to the restaurant for a late breakfast. Grace walked awkwardly, fussing with her scarf, bundled up indoors. "Gracie, that scarf's tight. Aren't you hot?" he asked, puzzled. She shot him a look. "Your fault. Check this out." She loosened it, revealing hickeys dotting her neck. "Ah, yeah." He grinned sheepishly. "Last night got wild. He hadn't noticed. But you left some too, Ty." He pulled his collar, showing matching marks. Her cheeks burned. "If you started it." "You. No, you." They stared each other down. A cleaning lady passed, giving them an odd glance. They burst out laughing, hurrying on. In the restaurant, they scarfed down food. No chit-chat, just refueling after the night's workout. Mid-bite, Ethan's phone rang. Yancey calling. "Hey, Yancey, what's up?" "Mr. Ford, PR got a call from Amazon. They're inviting you to their first Emerald Bay Summit." "You in? Emerald Bay Summit? Why us?" he asked, surprised. "They want you representing 361 PC Guardian. We're tops in cybersecurity, counts as tech. It's Amazon's event for industry leaders to discuss U.S. digital trends. Not official, just their thing," Yancey explained. "Usern Rikold, Brisikерli Bigvich Bragfest." "Meeting those power players? Intriguing. Sure, tell him yes. I'm already in Tahoe." "Got it, Mr. Ford. Starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. Right here at the Four Seasons." He chuckled. "What a coincidence. Funny, I'm staying here." "Ah, perfect. I'll confirm. Later." "Yep." He hung up, digging back in. Grace looked curious. "Ethan, what's that about?" He shrugged, smiling. "Nothing big. Tomorrow's a networking thing. Meeting some folks." "Huh, networking? Sounds fancy." He nodded. "Gracie, tag along tomorrow, you'll see. Finish up, then snowball time." "Yes. Snow play, my fave," she beamed. At Amazon's Tahoe office, Jack Mars was on the phone. "Hey, old buddy, you making it tomorrow?" "Count on it," the voice replied. "Great, see you at the Bay." Jack laughed heartily. Hanging up, his secretary knocked. "Mr. Mars, West Ford Group's confirmed. Mr. Ford attending. and he's already in Tahoe. Excellent. Didn't expect their CEO to bite. With him, the summit's buzz skyrockets, Jack said, pumped. Westford's 361 PC Guardian was exploding. Post-virus defense, it was install one for every PC. Near monopoly in security, outpacing rivals by generations. This rising star? Huge. Compared to Amazon's year-old launch, they were killing it. His presence? Boost the event big time. Yeah, they're easy to work with. Good rep in Chicago, too. Mr. Ford might bring fresh ideas, the secretary smiled. Jack nodded, then froze, a thought hit. Something important slipped. He stood abruptly. Wait, what's West Ford's CEO's name? Mr. Moss? Ethan Ford. Easy Ethan, Maple Ford. Ethan Ford. Jack muttered, yesterday's young guy flashing back. That kid was Ethan too, but too young. Coincidence? Maybe Evan or something. Mr. Mars? The secretary interrupted. Nothing, overthinking. Carry on. Right, and pick up Mr. Gray. Treat him right. No slip-ups. Yes, sir. I'll handle all guests. Good. NetBay's Dean Sterling and Portal's Walter North arrived today, too. Greet him. I've got meetings. See him tomorrow. Yes, Mr. Muffs. Heading to the Four Seasons now. The secretary bowed out. Jack stared out at the snowy landscape. Eyes ambitious. Emerald Bay Summit. Aiming for tech dominance. The digital frontier will have Amazon's flag. That afternoon, a black Audi pulled up to the Four Seasons. Clark Jennings hopped out from shotgun, hurrying to open the back door. Mr. Gray, watch your head. The elderly man wore a black fedora, thick brown frames, and a dark green overcoat. Elegant and steady. Thanks, son. Appreciate the ride, he said warmly. Your presence from San Francisco honors Amazon. No trouble at all. The trek must have been tiring. Clark replied sincerely. You and Mr. Mars are like kin across generations. Been meaning to catch up, huh? Yes, sir. This way. Room's ready. Rest up. Summit's tomorrow right here. Good. Haven't strolled the bay in ages. Heard it snowed. Should be scenic. No need to babysit. I'm spry. Go on with your day. Anything, call me. Clark bowed and left. Mr. Gray wandered in, hands clasped like a neighborhood grandpa out for air. The hotel's design echoed classic American lodges, nestled by Emerald Bay with a rustic charm. He meandered to the garden, hearing bright laughter ahead, like wind chimes. Further on, he spotted a young couple joyfully building a snowman. The girl was stunning, smile fresh and sweet, like a rom-com lead. The guy was clean-cut, bookish, but suited up with a mature edge, contrasting his youthful face. They played happily, blending with the snow like a painting. Tired, Mr. Gray sat in the gazebo, watching, sighing inwardly. Youth is grand. A snowball whizzed by, landing at his feet. The young man rushed over. Oh, sorry, sir. Didn't hit you, did it? No worries, Mr. Gray chuckled. Man, that was close. Really sorry. Two waitresses arrived with tea. Mr. Ford, your order. Thanks. Ethan nodded, then called, Little Gracie, thirsty? Come sip some coffee. Not yet. Gotta finish the head. You drink. Grace yelled, packing snow. Ethan shook his head, amused. Snow obsessed. She wouldn't quit till dawn. Noticing the old man huddling, he offered, Sir, care for a cup? If you don't mind. Nah, it's just coffee, no biggie. Out and about. Make friends. That's Ethan's motto. Networking's key for biz. Shyness won't cut it. You never know. A casual chat could land a big deal. Who knows? That connection might change everything. Cold day. Hot coffee warms you up. Thanks, son. No prob. Ethan shrugged, pouring a cup. In the chill, steam rose from the mugs. Blue Mountain aroma soothing. Mr. Gray sipped, surprised. This is premium Kona. Kona's pricey, over $2,000 a pound. This kid drinks the good stuff? Must be for money. Staying here's not cheap. Sir, you're sharp. A real connoisseur. Spot it with one taste. Impressive. Ethan praised, like meeting a kindred spirit. Mr. Gray waved it off. Just years of sipping. Not an expert. But you treating this like everyday Joe? Must be doing well. Ethan sipped. Money's for spending. Otherwise, it's just paper. Within means, splurge away. Mr. Gray paused. This kid's take was fresh. Economy rough lately. Folks pinching pennies, even well off. But here's a youngster living it up. Intriguing. He grew curious. Sounds like you made it big, congrats. Not much. Just started up. Don't want to be money slave. Mr. Gray's eyes lit. You're like a Western hero. Lone Ranger, following your gut. Too kind. Cheers. They clinked mugs, chatting freely, broad topics, Ethan holding his own. Half hour later, two men entered the garden. Mr. Gray, we're here. The lead wore gold-rimmed glasses, flashy down jacket with bold Louis Vuitton logos. He shook hands warmly. Mr. Gray, Dean Sterling here, remember? Mr. Gray, Walter North, longtime admirer. Hello, please. Mr. Gray greeted, then introduced. Meet Ethan Ford, tech guy, startup less than a year, early days. NetBay's Dean Sterling eyed Ethan, thinking, kids young for business. Probably blowing family cash. Oh, hi, Dean Sterling. He extended a hand coolly, adding, of NetBay. Anyone in tech knows me, right? But Ethan's calm. No, kid's cocky. Portal's Walter North glanced curiously. No fanboy reaction to a mogul like Dean? Ethan shook firmly, even-keeled. Ethan Ford. Dean withdrew, chuckling dryly, then lectured like an elder. Bold move, starting young, commendable. But business needs grit. Hope you kids stay grounded. Less flash, more substance. Nail that. You'll go far. Startup struggle. Cover payroll. Make a few grand. That's half the battle. Survive first, then grow. Dean wrapped up his advice with encouragement. Kid, hustle hard. Nothing'll stop you. Keep at it. Ethan was taken aback, but sensed no malice. Sure, Mr. Sterling, wise words. I'll push on. Dean nodded, pleased, thinking his nudge worked. Exactly. Swap tips anytime. Mr. Gray waved. Don't stand, sit, chat. Ethan, mind sharing more of that fine brew? Haha, coffee's for sharing, join in. Ethan poured generously. They settled. Ethan served Dean and Walter steaming mugs. Mr. Gray, should have told us you arrived early. We'd have picked you up. Dean ignored his cup, focusing on Mr. Gray. You execs are busy. No need. Mr. Sterling, try the coffee. Warms you right up. Mr. Gray, ever smooth, nudged subtly, knowing etiquette. Dean, tech guy through and through, shrugged it off but sipped obligingly. Decent. My palate's not picky. Thrilled you flew from San Fran, Mr. Gray. Ethan noted. From San Fran? And Dean's deference? Big shot, Gray. Could it be the Louis Gray? Western legend. Ethan set his mug down. Mr. Gray, are you the author of those epic westerns? Guilty as charged. Mr. Gray owned it gracefully. Ethan's eyes widened. Legend in the flesh. He stood, shaking hands respectfully. Honored. Gracie and I are huge fans. Snow-capped peaks and dusty trails. Tales of gunslingers and frontier justice. The master of adventure yarns. Thrilled to meet you. Ethan respected the icon. Stories of rugged heroes, American spirit, beloved nationwide. Such classics? Timeless. Writer's envy. Mr. Gray smiled warmly. Snow-capped peaks and dusty trails. Nice turn of phrase. You got away with words, son? Nah, nothing like you. Just fanboying. Walter chuckled. You just now realizing, Ethan? Thought you two were old pals, chatting away. He eyed Ethan, poised, thoughtful, not your typical trust funder. Mr. Gray laughed. Ethan's great company. Wish we'd met sooner. Fascinating guy. The praise irked Dean. At this table, besides Mr. Gray, his cred's topped. Yet this kid stole the spotlight. Mr. Gray, easy on the praise for youngsters. Might go to their heads. I'd be strutting. Right, Walter? Walter nodded, gesturing Ethan down. Ethan, what's your biz? Spill. Dean might mentor. Dean's a silicon heavyweight, you know. Ethan smirked inwardly. Too young for equals with these egos. Guess moguls have vanities too. Probably chatting for Mr. Gray sake, otherwise zilch. To them, unknown juniors? Not worth a hello. Dean waved modestly. Nah, just longer in the game. Exchange ideas, sure. Ethan, Mr. Gray says tech. What's your niche? Ethan smiled. Bit of everything. PC parts, security software. Unrelated fields? Spreading thin early? Risky. Dean sipped, critiquing. Not my wheelhouse for parts, but up north, Acme Group solid. Wide channels. Market's growing, but focus. Pour energy into sales networks. Ethan's lip twitched. Traditional mindset from a Portal/game guy. Fair. E-commerce nascent. They miss new channels. NetBay's on ads and games. Yeah, expanding channels, but not old school wholesale. No wholesale. House sell. Prime time for building him, Ethan. Dean shook his head, disappointed. Online platform. Lower costs, better deals for buyers. Ethan stayed cool. Walter laughed. Online sales? Ethan, ain't Europe. Broadband spotty. Education levels vary. Won't fly yet. Amazon's sticking to directories. Eyeing B2B. We've chatted. Consumer platforms? 3 to 5 years off. Right idea, wrong timing. Success needs the stars aligning. Dean nodded. Yup, copying Euro models? Infrastructure is lacking. Don't overreach, kid, could backfire. Ethan sipped coffee, smiling silently, not worth debating. They didn't grasp his strategy, debate futile. For most startups, yeah, e-com flops fast. But West Ford, backed by 361 Guardians users, plus prime Chicago sourcing, closed loop for e-com. Dean took the silence as dismissal, sighing inwardly. Kid's arrogant, won't listen. Oh well, as elder, more guidance needed, lest the startup tanks. Dean advised earnestly. Ethan, some senior tips, mull 'em over. Next couple years, nail those sales channels. When digital booms for platforms, pivot. Otherwise, R&D and staffing burn cash. With no revenue, it's your wallet bleeding. So, play safe, ditch the security fluff, focus sales. Later, I could intro you to Acme, maybe collab space. Tag along expanding? Solid earnings. Dean's tone was heartfelt, even offering connections. Ethan stifled a laugh. Good intentions, but off base. Flat refusal? Root. Yeah, solid advice. I'll think on it. Mr. Gray, sensing impasse, interjected smoothly. Hey, beautiful view, why biz talk? Let's do weather, romance, savor the moment. Walter agreed. Spot on, Mr. Gray. Ha, Dean's a workaholic, tech on the brain everywhere. Dean raised his mug. My bad. Coffee toast to Mr. Gray, no shop talk. Mr. Gray turned to Ethan. Join in. They clinked, downing the brew. Post-toast, chat shifted to Mr. Gray's westerns, share ground. Soon, Grace finished her snowman, but noticed Ethan's absence. Glancing back, he was deep in convo, all chummy. Old friends. She brushed off snow, jogging over. Mr. Ford, what's up? He stood, grinning mysteriously. Little Gracie, who's your fave author? Louis Gray. Why ask now, she puzzled. The others chuckled. Made her more confused. What's funny? He pressed. Idle, right? If he popped up, what did you do? She scoffed. Impossible. He's in San Fran. No way. He laughed. Tada. Meet your idol, Mr. Gray. Grace gaped, whipping around, staring. It clicked. Jaw dropped. Mr. Gray rose, bowing slightly. Ah, hello, miss. That'd be me. Grace scrutinized, then squealed, bouncing. Oh, Mr. Gray. Stammering greetings, total fan mode. She grilled him, begged autographs, like a starstruck teen. Mr. Gray was gracious, signing freely. Her join turned the coffee clatch into a meet and greet. They lost track of time, till dusk. Mr. Gray yawned, getting weary, heading in. Chat ended. Ethan and Grace escorted him back. Grace buzzed. Ethan, dream come true. Met Louis Gray. He's so nice. He teased. Don't overexcite. Might not sleep. Early bed tonight. Tomorrow's the summit. Next morning, Jack Mars and Clark Jennings arrived at the Four Seasons. Mr. Mars, West Ford says their CEO's here. Meet first. Jack paused, then nodded. Yeah, old pals can wait. They showed, gotta greet properly. Good call, Mr. Mas? Mr. Ford's in the Lakeside suite. Lakeside, one of the top suites. Jack straightened his tie, curious about West Ford's helm. What kind of guy builds that empire? West Ford flew under radar. If not for 361 Guardian tie, no invite. Low-key parent company. Post-booking, they reached the door. Jack breathed deep, ringing the bell personally. Door opened, and he froze. Stunned. Oh, it's you. You? How's it you? Jack gawked at the young man. Crisp black suit, gold pin, side-parted hair, scholarly vibe. Same face, different aura. Ethan smiled, extending a hand. Mr. Mars, pleasure, us again. Jack shook, dazed. You're West Ford CEO, Mr. Ford. Couldn't believe it. A 20-something heading a rising giant. Too young. Ethan nodded. Yup. Surprised? Jack chuckled wryly. Anyone would be. Impressive. So young. Ethan shrugged modestly. Flattery, Mr. Mas? Commane. They settled in the living room. Grace, munching chocolate, peeked out. Guests, Ethan? Yeah, this is Amazon's Mr. Mas? Met before. The Good Samaritan. I'll recognize him instantly. Grace nodded. Jack stood. Hello, small world. Just helped out. Really? Thanks, or that mugger escapes. Chat away. I'll brew coffee. Grace thanked, dipping out thoughtfully. Biz wasn't her scene. Best contribute with hospitality. No interest in schmoozing. Poster exit. Jack sat, envious. Mr. Ford, stunning girlfriend, lucky man. Ethan beamed. Maybe good karma from last life. Haha, perfect match. Jack buttered up. Rapport building 101. Praise cost zilch. Ethan got it, reciprocating. Your eyes sharp, for people and ventures. Jumping into you. Directories in B2B? Spot on. Amazon's barely a year old. Snagging SoftBank's multi-million funding? Killer. Mutual flattery flowed, vibe warming. Hearts aside, surface cordiality key. Atmosphere set, Jack thanked sincerely. Appreciate you attending the Emerald Bay Summit. Here to ask, special guest speaker? Share on stage. Folks love 361 PC Guardian story and your digital future take. Themes handed neatly. Ethan shrugged. Easy peasy at a brag fest. Sure, no prob. If I ramble, don't mind. Haha, doubt it. You seem smoother than me. They shared a laugh. Smart convo, refreshing. Business done. They bantered. Grace served coffee. Mugs full, leaves floating, aroma wafting. Enjoy, she chirped. Jack and Clark eyed the brimming cups, exchanging glances. Clark pondered, praising. Smells divine. Good brew needs the right touch. Person makes the difference. Grace beamed. Ah, too kind. Just simple stuff. Jack added. I'm no expert, but it's great. Mr. Ford's lucky, beautiful, and thoughtful partner. Ethan glanced at the overflow, knew they were saving face. Absolutely, Mr. Muffs. Cheers. They chatted 10 more minutes, coffee gone. Jack and Clark rose. See you at the summit. Ethan saw them out. Grace bounced up, proud. He didn't embarrass you, right? Humph, lucky having a sharp girlfriend. He shook his head fondly, leading her to the table. Pointing to Jack's near-overflowing cup. Lesson time, little Gracie, listen up. See the level? Yep, next time don't fill so high, 9/10, almost spilling. Coffee 7, wine 8, 7/10, leaves room for grace. Easy sip, no burns or spills, polite. Full, signals time to go. Grace gaped. Really? Rules like that? First she'd heard from Ethan. He pinched her nose, teasingly. Yup, dummy. Huh? Was I rude? He laughed. You get it now? Probably thought I was rushing him. But Mr. Mars played cool. Not a coffee guy, gave me an out. Grace blinked. His praise. For that. Ugh, you all schemy. So many rules. He ruffled her hair. Biz folks, calculating, guarded. But you? I'll shield you. Touched. She stuck out her tongue. He okay. Next time by the book. Oh, they here for the summit? He nodded, smirking. Yup, special guest, speech and all. Formal? Thought casual chats. Of course, boosts Amazon's rep. Smart marketing. Talented guy, Mr. Muffs? Ethan lounged, leg crossed. His smile turned sly. Acquiring Amazon? Fun thought. North-South duo under West Ford? Epic empire. Summit venue. Ashul. Jack sneezed. Who's thinking of me? Mr. Mars. Yahoo's Charles Young. NetBay's Dean. They're here. All here. Jack took a tissue, wiping his nose, turning. 7 or 8 approached. Ha. If it ain't our Mr. Muffs? Charles Young, green and white. Charles, early bird, was in a swing by for coffee later. Coffee anytime. Bumped into Dean and crew. Figured check the venue first. Coffee? Side room. Sure, let's. Jack led, host duties. Titled Emerald Bay Summit, but really a circle schmooze. Jack's play. Network Plus promo, win-win, semi-formal vibe. En route to the lounge, Dean asked. Jack saw the program. Mystery VIP speaker. What's the deal? Jack chuckled at the lingo. Kept it hush. Invite uncertain. No show? No vas. But locked in now. Not huge name, but surprising. Curiosity spiked. Dean's itch grew. Come on, Jack, teasing us? Spill who? Bay Area vet? Knowing. Jack played coy. Nah, you'll see. Patience hot. You dog. Dean groaned. Others laughed. Walter teased. Dean squirming. Cat's got his tongue. But seriously, if not our crowd, fresh blood? Right, Jack? Jack paused. Sharp as ever, Walter. Yeah, new tech force. Nowadays, digital's exploding. New unicorns pop up. But this? Mega unicorn. The biggest. Jaws dropped. High praise from Amazon's head. Amazon itself, a beast. Huge funding. Rapid growth via Jack's Connects. Biggest newbie? Arguably Amazon. But Jack said otherwise? Intriguing. Bigger than you? News to me. Dean gaped, racking his brain. Walter stroked his chin. Jack confirmed tech? Platform play. What platform? Jack grinned. Walter, Mr. Inside guess. Group pondered years hot apps. Walter lit up. Wait, not 361 PC Guardian. Others nodded, dawning. Yeah, that must-have security tool, 361 PC Guardian. Product viral, but dev firm low-key. No corp hype, just that push. Most would have blasted the brand. Right, 361 Guardian. Didn't click, hot item. Office folks swear by it. Charles nodded. 361 Guardian? Who's? Heard of it, but skimmed. Dean asked. Security, not his portal/game lane. Westford Tech. It's on their site, Walter quipped. Who browses sites? Haven't tried it, Dean shot back. You should. Killer features. Antivirus leads pack, plus RAM tweaks. Sleek, strong against bugs. Launch buzzed big on Portal. Top security installs, Walter explained. Portal head. He tracked trends more than Dean. Huh, top dog. That good. Dean marveled. Domain leads elite. Walter laughed. Duh. But Jack, you got Westford Tech. Jack smirked oddly. Westford Tech. Nah. Walter blinked. Then who? That's right. If it's not someone from Westford Tech, who else could it be? Wasn't 361 developed by Westford Tech? Charles yang asked, equally boozlet. Jack Mars chuckled mischievously. Hey, you'll find out soon enough. If I tell you now, he wouldn't be a mystery guest anymore, would he? Come on, Jack, that's just cruel. Charles laughed helplessly. His curiosity had been piqued, scratching at him like a cat at a closed door. All right. Let's go have some coffee first. We'll know soon enough, won't we? No ruse, no ruse. Gentlemen, please. Jack extended a hand to lead the way. The group chatted and laughed as they headed toward the side hall to enjoy some coffee and conversation. Just then, Clark Jennings walked briskly toward the table, approaching Jack. Mr. Mars, Mr. Gray has arrived. Jack immediately stood up upon hearing this and waved his hand. Come on, let's go welcome him. The Tumit, Mr. Gray at the entrance of the side hall. Mr. Gray, good to see you. Did you rest well at the hotel last night? Jack stepped forward to shake his hand, greeting him warmly. Quite well. I saw it was about time, so I came over to take a look. I heard you were all having coffee here. Mr. Gray responded with a smile. Yes, Mr. Gray, please. Everyone is basically here. It's a small gathering this time, less than 10 people in total, Jack said modestly. He said this to prevent Mr. Gray from feeling any pressure. After all, Mr. Gray was essentially the host of the conference. The name Emerald Bay Summit was chosen because of his presence. Mr. Gray laughed heartily. Yes, less than 10 people, but I hear half the internet industry's market cap is represented here, right? That's hardly small. It's just friends doing me a favor, Jack laughed. The reason these peers were showing such face was partly due to his background, partly due to the investors, and largely due to Jack's undeniable networking skills. If it were any ordinary startup CEO without background or connections, they wouldn't have been able to organize this at all. Mr. Gray, let's go sit. They're all waiting for you. Jack bowed slightly and invited him, showing great respect. Good, let's go sit. Mr. Gray waved his hand and smiled. The two entered the lounge, and the group of internet titans stood up one after another to greet Mr. Gray. Good morning, Mr. Gray. Good to see you, sir. Mr. Gray responded kindly to each of them. Looking around the circle, Mr. Gray suddenly felt as if something was missing. Someone was missing. Mr. Mars, are we missing someone? Mr. Gray turned back to ask Jack. Missing someone? Who are you referring to, sir? Jack asked in surprise, as everyone seemed to be present. Mr. Gray asked in confusion. Yesterday, I ran into a young man. I believe he said he was attending the Emerald Bay Summit as well. You're talking about him? You don't need to worry about that, sir. He was probably just talking big. Dean Sterling laughed loudly. Charles Young didn't know what had happened yesterday and asked, what young man? Oh, just some rich kid running a company. We met him with Mr. Gray yesterday and chatted for a bit. Dean replied casually. Oh, why does Mr. Gray care so much? Charles was puzzled. How should I know? Dean rolled his eyes at him. Mr. Gray looked around again and didn't see Ethan Ford, a look of regret appearing on his face. Since meeting Ethan, he had felt that the young man was not simple. He spoke with wit and a certain philosophy. He was a very interesting young man. He had thought he could get to know him better at the meeting, but it seemed he hadn't come. All right, let's not stand around. Everyone, sit down and let's chat. Mr. Gray shook his head and smiled. In the blink of an eye, it was 10:30 a.m. The Emerald Bay Summit was about to begin. More than a dozen reporters had gathered in the conference hall. The scale wasn't huge, but it included major publications like the Bay Chronicle and the Herald Business Journal. The reporters were waiting patiently for the meeting to start. At this moment, the group led by Jack Mars walked out from the side hall. Beside Jack was Mr. Gray, followed by the various internet moguls. The Portal, NetBay, and Yahoo, all major portal companies, well-known internet enterprises both domestically and internationally. There was a small platform in the conference hall with 9 chairs. The group went up to the platform and took their seats. Seeing this, the reporters knew the meeting was about to begin and took out their cameras to shoot. The screen behind the stage lit up, displaying the words, First Emerald Bay Summit. Mr. Gray stood at the front of the stage to give the opening speech. Welcome, everyone, to the first Emerald Base Summit. I am honored to be invited by Mr. Mars to host this meeting. I say host, but really, I'm just here to see the world, haha. The reporters below laughed at Mr. Gray's humble self-deprecation, and the atmosphere relaxed. Mr. Mars also said not to think of this as a conference, but rather as a group of us chatting together, discussing the domestic internet. That's all. Next, let me introduce the guests attending the first Emerald Base Summit. First is the chairman of NetBay, Mr. Dean Sterling. Mr. Gray introduced the guests one by one to the reporters, reading from the cue cards prepared for him. When he turned to the last card, he suddenly froze. It seems we have a mysterious special guest today. Please welcome the president of West Ford Group, Mr. Ethan Ford. The people on stage finally heard who this mysterious guest was. It really wasn't someone from West Ford Tech, but judging by the title, it must be the parent company of West Ford Tech. Dean Sterling froze. West Ford Group. Ethan. Ethan what? Ethan Ford. Walter North blurted out, looking shocked. Dean Sterling finally reacted, the image of the young man from yesterday flashing through his mind. His name was Ethan Ford. Could it be him? Ethan Ford, Dean exclaimed in astonishment. He and Walter North looked at each other, their eyes filled with disbelief. It was hard to believe that the young man from yesterday was actually the president of a corporate group. On the host stand, Mr. Gray also seemed to realize. So that young man named Ethan Ford was participating as a special guest. Jack Marr stood up and smiled. Everyone, please give a round of applause to welcome our special guest, president of West Ford Group, Mr. Ethan Ford. Everyone's eyes turned toward the entrance. Many were stunned. They didn't know West Ford Group, nor were they familiar with its president, but Jack was the host, so they gave him face and applauded. At that moment, the doors opened, and Clark Jennings led a young man in a suit, exuding a refined temperament, into the venue. This young man looked to be in his early 20s, very young, perhaps even a bit green, but his calm expression and unwavering gaze seemed inconsistent with his youthful appearance, creating a contradictory combination. There was a maturity about him that surpassed his peers. Whether it was the CEOs on stage or the reporters below, when they saw that the president of West Ford Group was such a young man, they all showed shock. No one expected the person in charge of corporate group to be so young. It was truly unexpected. As for Dean Sterling and Walter North, seeing Ethan with their own eyes left them dumbfounded. It really was that rich kid they met yesterday. Huh, what rich kid? Someone who could produce a product as impressive as 361 PC Safety Manager was no ordinary rich kid. With the fierce momentum of 361, the West Ford Group behind it certainly couldn't be underestimated. Dean Sterling's face suddenly burned hot. He remembered how he had lectured the guy yesterday about how to run a business. Now he felt utterly embarrassed. Truly, the clown was himself. Cough, cough. So that young man is the president of West Ford Group. I really didn't expect that. Dean laughed dryly. Yeah, I didn't expect it either. He's too young, Walter North sighed. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Ethan as he walked onto the platform. Jack went up to greet him, shaking his hand with a smile. Ah, good to see you, President Ford. You're too kind, Mr. Mars. Ethan smiled while shaking his hand. After speaking, Ethan turned to look at Dean Sterling, a strange smile curling at the corner of his mouth as he greeted. Hello, Mr. Sterling. Dean's face couldn't hold up anymore. He forced out a smile and responded, hello, President Ford. He felt his cheeks stinging. Seeing his embarrassed look, Walter North couldn't help but tease, Hey, why is Senior Dean blushing? Dean could only glare at him secretly. Jack turned sideways to introduce him to the reporters and other guests. This is Mr. Ethan Ford, president of West Ford Group. You may not know West Ford Group, but some of you should have heard of West Ford Tech. This company developed the nationally famous 361 PC Safety Manager, becoming the #1 application in the cybersecurity field by install base. And West Ford Group is the parent company of West Ford Tech. Today, he represents the subsidiary and the 361 product. I am honored to have invited the biggest dark horse of the year. The reporters below frantically pressed their shutters, taking photos of Ethan. Jack turned to Ethan and said seriously, President Ford, welcome to the Emerald Base Summit. Seeing Jack's sincere expression, Ethan smiled. You are too kind, Mr. Muffs. To be on the same stage as so many internet titans is truly my honor. Jack grinned broadly. Dealing with smart people was just so easy. He extended a hand. Please, President Ford, take a seat. Ethan nodded and then greeted the other guests on stage one by one. Proper etiquette. After Mr. Gray's opening remarks concluded, he returned to the platform to start the day's topic, trends in the development of the domestic internet. Jack used a very vivid description to characterize the current status and trends of the online landscape. He compared the internet of the year 2000 to a chaotic era of warlords, a time of turmoil where various factions fought for dominance. Limited by infrastructure, the current internet still had a certain regional and fragmented nature. For example, network operators were split between different regions, and internet products and applications mostly served specific local social needs. A clear example was the regional boards on forums like Tech Haven or various city-specific chat rooms, catering to local social demands. But this fragmented situation was being broken as portal websites grew, constantly shattering regional boundaries and concentrating traffic onto portal platforms. The battle for portal traffic had already begun to show its signs. In the future, traffic would further concentrate, and the advantage of top portals would be amplified by the network effect. He believed the next 5 years would be the golden age of PC internet portals. Whoever satisfied user needs would become the traffic gateway. And what Jack wanted to do was start from actual B2B procurement needs, cutting into the B2B portal market, and later laying out C2C. Online shopping would become a trend. This was the vision of his company, Mama. Jack's words resonated deeply with the others. Next, Walter North, president of the portal, shared his views, interpreting internet development from the perspective of social portals. He believed that social interaction was the most significant attribute of the internet, and that there was still vast room for growth. Other guests successively expressed their views on development trends and shared their products and opinions. Ethan listened carefully from the side. This was his first time in close contact with these first-generation internet big shots. He had to admit, their views on the industry were very distinctive and aligned perfectly with historical trends. Titans were indeed titans. Their grasp of the future was not something ordinary people could compare to. Speaking of the cybersecurity field, we must have President Ford say a few words. Why don't we let President Ford introduce 361 PC Safety Manager and its future development? Mr. Gray said with interest. Suddenly, everyone's eyes turned to Ethan, holding a hint of expectation. Jack also looked at Ethan with great anticipation. In his heart, the potential of 361 PC Safety Manager was immense. It had the potential to become an internet giant. Facing so many gazes, Ethan showed no timidity. On the contrary, he was very calm. He was long accustomed to such conference settings. He had experienced even grander scenes. After a moment of thought, he said, "The prototype of the 361 product was developed by me personally, so I understand clearly what its positioning should be. It is to guard the user's computer security and carry out that security to the end. It is an antivirus software adopting the industry's most advanced heuristic engine technology. This technology compares virus signatures for detection and removal, possessing high autonomy and protection capabilities against various Trojans and viruses. 361 is convenient, practical, and adopts a universal free strategy. So recently, there's been a little bit of success." Ethan added a humble remark at the end. Jack twitched the corner of his mouth, secretly complaining in his heart. "A little bit? You probably have traffic in the 3 or 4 million range. President Ford, can you reveal the user count for this product?" Dean Sterling asked curiously. Ethan chuckled softly. "Of course. Our user count is updated in real time on our official website. As of today, the user count is over 3 million. Hearing this number, the guests on the scene sucked in a breath of cold air, startled. This figure might not be huge for a portal website, but 361 PC Safety Manager had only been developing for a few months. The user count was growing so fast. It was simply incredible. Dean was shocked. His gaze toward Ethan changed again, becoming more serious. This young man could not be underestimated. Seeing their astonished looks, Ethan smiled. "Do you gentlemen think that is a lot? I think it's just okay. There is still huge room for growth." According to the Internet Industry Report compiled by the Department of Commerce, by the end of 2000, the number of domestic Internet users had reached 22.5 million, with 15.43 million dial-up users. With such a huge market and strong new user growth, is getting over 3 million users a lot? I don't think it's a lot at all. According to 361's target, we aim to reach 80% of dial-up users, which is over 12 million users, and maintain growth with new users. That is the passing grade. 12 million users. Are you crazy? The people on the scene were dumbfounded hearing this. This kind of 10 million level traffic. Even the current portal sites hadn't reached it yet, and they didn't necessarily have the confidence to reach it. But coming from Ethan's mouth, this data was merely a passing grade. Crazy, too damn crazy. President Ford, can 361 really achieve an 80% market share? Walter North asked in disbelief. Ethan smiled faintly. It might be difficult in other fields, but it's not hard in the cybersecurity field because this field is special. It's basically winner takes all, winning entirely by technological leadership. Users will only choose the cheapest, easiest to use security product. 361 adopts a universal free strategy with a premium membership experience. Compared to current products on the market with relatively backward technology and monthly subscription models, we are very competitive. Getting an 80% market share is not difficult. As long as we maintain technological and service leadership, this traffic gateway will belong to 361 in the future. Walter North clicked his tongue secretly. This young man had no small ambition. At this moment, the other guests looked at Ethan with a bit more respect. The younger generation was truly fearsome. Below the stage, reporters pointed their lenses at Ethan and pressed the shutters. It was believed that starting from today, West Ford Group would emerge prominently in the internet industry of Chicago and Houston. The Emerald Bay Summit had instead become the debut stage for West Ford Group. The meeting lasted for a full 3 hours, not ending until 1:00 p.m. After it ended, Charles Young, Walter North, Jack Mars, and other guests surrounded Ethan, chatting with him to build rapport. After all, this was a massive future traffic gateway. They definitely needed to build a good relationship. Hey, President Ford, here's my card. If you have time in the future, you must look me up in Houston. President Ford, I think there is room for deep cooperation between our Yahoo platform and 361. Let's grab a meal sometime and chat. Haha, President Ford, Alimama and West Ford Group have many areas for cooperation too. A procurement platform is a win-win strategy. Facing the flood of cooperation offers, Ethan was quite satisfied. He felt the trip was well worth it. In the future, these would be his resources and connections, all utilizable. Good, easy to say. Let's definitely have a good chat another day. Ethan said politely to everyone. Suddenly, a phone call came in. He took out his mobile phone and saw it was Grace calling. He immediately excused himself from the crowd and walked aside to answer. What's wrong, Gracie? Miss me already? Ethan, let's go back early. On the other end of the phone, Grace's voice sounded anxious. Hearing her tone, Ethan sensed something was wrong. He frowned and asked urgently, Don't panic. What's going on? What happened? Grace's voice trembled slightly. My mom just called. My dad is being blocked inside the factory by a group of workers and can't get out. I'm worried about him. Hearing that his future father-in-law was in trouble, Ethan was startled. What? Blocked inside the factory? Damn, it seemed the situation at the steel mill was worse than expected. The collapse of the steel mill was an inevitable historical trend. Industrial upgrading and the elimination of backward production capacity were necessary processes. In Ethan's past impression, the closing of the steel mill was just like the closing of many paper mills, tanneries, and steel plants across the country. They just closed down inexplicably without much news, like hearing that the convenience store in the next village had shut its doors. He had only known the result, and that was it. But as an adult, looking back at everything that happened to his father, he realized that behind the factory closures were the livelihoods of many workers' families, their pain and bitterness. To avoid repeating the same mistakes, he worked hard to make money, desperately improving his family's conditions so his parents wouldn't suffer the pain of layoffs. However, these events seemed to be happening even more intensely than expected. Even the vice plant manager, George Miller, was blocked inside the factory by workers and couldn't get out. There must be a major problem involved. Ethan pondered for a moment and said calmly, Gracie, don't panic. I'll come find you in a bit, and we'll fly back to Chicago immediately. Comforted by Ethan, Grace finally calmed down a bit. Okay, I'll wait for you at the entrance. Hanging up the phone, Ethan went to say goodbye to Jack Mars and the others. Apologies, everyone. I have an urgent family matter. I can't make the dinner this afternoon. I have to rush back to Chicago. Ethan said solemnly to Jack. Hearing the change in his tone, Jack knew something real had happened and didn't try to keep him. He asked with concern, All right, go handle your business, President Ford. If you need help, give me a call. Ethan smiled, nodded, and said, You're too kind. Let's meet again another day. There will definitely be opportunities, Jack smiled. That afternoon, Ethan and Grace rushed back to their hotel suite to pack their luggage. Gracie, what exactly is happening? Why was Uncle George suddenly blocked in the factory? Is he in danger? Grace packed quickly her face full of worry. I don't know the specifics. I heard from my mom that it's because of the negotiations with Pitt Steel. The workers are furious and demanding that the head of the negotiation team, plant manager Lester Jenkins, come out and give an explanation. Although my dad isn't the one making the final decision, he's on the negotiation team. So he got blocked inside too. Ethan thought for a moment and analyzed. It must be because the negotiation terms offended the workers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making such a scene. Forget it. Guessing here is useless. Let's go back and see. I hope he's okay. Meanwhile, in front of the office building of the Tri-State Steel Mill in the suburbs of Chicago, nearly 1,000 workers had surrounded the building so tightly that not even water could trickle through. They held up over a dozen banners, their emotions volatile. Jenkins, get out here. Yeah, get out. Give us an explanation. Screw you, shameless Lester. Selling out our interests for your own promotion. Get out. Hurry up and get out. The gates of the office building were shut tight. The workers didn't storm in, but they blocked the entrance so no one could escape, demanding plant manager Lester Jenkins come out and give an account. But since the siege began at noon, Lester Jenkins hadn't shown his face once. His evasive attitude only enraged the workers further, who swore not to let anyone leave until Jenkins came out to talk. This led to the current standoff. On the third floor of the office building, the factory executives were in chaos. Some were calling the police, others were calling home to leave final instructions, fearing that if the angry mob broke in, they might be thrown out the window. George Miller's face was ashen, and he looked at Lester Jenkins with fury. Manager Jenkins, say something. What do we do about this? Hearing the roar like a tsunami downstairs, Lester Jenkins' hands were trembling. What can I do? They won't listen to reason. You don't actually expect me to go down there and talk to them, do you? Who the hell knows what those people might do? If something happens, will you take responsibility? George was furious seeing his cowardly appearance. But since Jenkins was still his superior, he couldn't force him to go out and quell the anger of 1,000 workers. He slammed the table angrily and shouted, Manager Jenkins, I agreed to Pitt Steel acquiring the plant, but I must insist on my conditions. Pitt Steel has already pushed the acquisition price so low from the initial $40 million down to $25 million. That's nearly half gone. We've made huge concessions, and they still refuse to cover the workers' severance? Where on earth is there such a deal? That money is enough to fill the plant's debt. But what about the workers? What about them? What about the families behind them? What will they do after they're laid off? If Pitt Steel won't pay this money, the acquisition price must be at least $30 million, and we pay it. George had feelings for the plant. He knew that bankruptcy, restructuring, and acquisition were the best outcomes for the plant. If it were any other factory, going bankrupt without anyone to take over meant either becoming a confused bad debt or leaving the local government to wipe their ass. But regardless of which method followed, the career path for the person serving as plant manager was basically over. He, Lester Jenkins, and the other executives all supported the plant being acquired by Pitt Steel. This was the only way out for the Tri-State Steel Mill. But Pitt Steel obviously knew this. They kept negotiating, constantly suppressing the price, demanding more concessions from the mill, and asking to bear fewer responsibilities. The negotiation had reached its final stages, and the acquisition amount and plan were roughly settled. But a disagreement arose over who should pay the workers' severance fees. Pitt Steel promised to acquire the mill for $25 million, but would not commit to being responsible for the workers' severance. Their reason was that this matter belonged to the internal affairs of the Tri-State Steel Mill and must be resolved before entering the acquisition process. But where would the mill get the money now to pay such a large sum? At least $500,000 in severance gap funding. George had thought they would dissolve the plant and dismiss the staff after the acquisition, and that Pitt Steel should pay this money because the acquisition price was already very low. That money was only enough to cover the plant's debts. There was no surplus for severance pay. But the negotiation representatives from Pitt Steel didn't agree at all, and the negotiation, which was about to end, fell into a deadlock. Later, in order to keep the negotiations going, Lester Jenkins proposed a new plan during internal discussions. Continue to concede, suppress the severance pay to under $100,000, and try to report the rest of the city, asking the city for help. This way, the negotiation could proceed smoothly, and the acquisition process could begin immediately. The only ones whose interests would be damaged were the workers, who would receive very little severance. When Lester brought this plan to the internal discussion, George was the first to disagree, standing up to clearly oppose it. But for some reason, the internal discussion of the negotiation team was leaked, reaching the ears of the workers instantly. This thoroughly enraged the 1,000 workers. That was why they had the current tense situation. Nearly 1,000 workers besieging the office building, emotions raging. Lester Jenkins retorted with a pale face. Old Miller, wake up. Do you think those foxes at Pit Steel are willing to pay this money? If the plant can't be acquired, and the plant is left with a pile of bad debts, me, all of us will be in deep trouble. We'll definitely be held accountable by the city. Think about it yourself. Let me think about it. I've thought about it, and I figured it out long ago. The workers' interests must be guaranteed. George retorted sternly. Guaranteed? What do you have to guarantee it with? Do you want to apply for approval from the city? Or do you want to dig money out of Pit Steel's pockets? I tell you, neither will work. And I firmly disagree. Lester Jenkins waved his hand dismissively. George was so angry his head felt like it would explode. He was speechless for a moment because he hadn't thought of a better way either. It was impossible for the city to approve such a large sum of money to clean up the mess. But if things blew up and they had to approve it, the plant's senior management would inevitably be held accountable and eventually removed. Getting money from Pit Steel was even harder. If they couldn't negotiate, Pit Steel would really rather give up on the acquisition, and it would still be a disaster. George sat down dejectedly in his seat, pulling at his hair with both hands, looking painful and helpless. It felt like a dead end. The office fell into a deathly silence. The other executives listened to the argument between the two without making a sound, knowing that speaking up was useless. After a long time, George took a cigarette from the pack of Marlboros on the table and lit it silently. Within the curling smoke, his eyes gradually became firm. I'll go fight for it with the city. Everyone in the room showed shock upon hearing this. This meant the factory leadership team would have to take responsibility for this situation. The career prospects of the leaders would likely end right there. George was sacrificing himself and their futures. Lester Jenkins' face looked terrible. He shouted angrily, "No, I disagree. I absolutely disagree." He was still thinking that after the steel mill matter was over, he could be transferred to another department and continue to climb up. How could he allow George to ruin his career prospects? If the higher-ups held them accountable, forget about the future. He wouldn't even be able to keep his current hat as plant manager. Old Miller, think twice. You must not act recklessly. Yeah, let's talk this over properly. We can definitely find other plans. Yes, don't be so impulsive. Other executives stepped forward to persuade him. But George had made up his mind and said calmly, I have decided. You don't need to persuade me. This is the most appropriate way. Lester slammed the table, pointing at George's nose and cursing, George Miller, do you still have any respect for me as a leader? If you dare to overstep your authority, I'll remove you. George smoked silently and said wearily, Remove me then. You're the one holding my feet to the fire. You'd better remove me right now. You. Outrageous. Are you rebelling against heaven? Lester was furious and moved forward to argue with George, but was held back and persuaded by other executives. George blew out smoke, stood up, and said coldly, I must give the workers below a satisfactory explanation. Lester shook off the other's hands, turned around, and locked the office door, raging, It's not your turn to make decisions here. I formally announce that you, George Miller, are no longer a member of the negotiation team. You have no right to represent us. At 4 p.m., outside the steel mill, police cars arrived one after another and stopped at the factory gate, followed by 3 black sedans. A group of people rushed out of the black sedans. The leader was a middle-aged man in a black jacket and black-rimmed glasses, about 40 years old and slightly chubby. Councilman Lee, maybe you shouldn't go in. I heard there are 1,000 people making a scene inside. What if something happens? A thin young secretary walked up to the man and whispered. Arthur Lee suddenly stopped and turned to glare at him. If I don't go, who will? The steel mill is in this district, so I have the responsibility to manage it, and I must manage it. Say no more. Harvey, tell the police not to go in first. Wait at the gate to avoid provoking the workers' emotions. I'll go in myself. Secretary Harvey hurriedly pulled him back and persuaded, Don't, Councilman. If you go in now, what will happen when Deputy Mayor Bowen arrives later? If you fail to persuade them inside, wouldn't it be? Arthur Lee was stunned upon hearing this. The anxiety on his face faded slightly, replaced by rational clarity. He pondered for a moment and said, Then let's wait at the gate first. Wait for Mayor Bowen's instructions. The reason he had rushed over in such a panic to calm the situation was that this was a matter within his jurisdiction. If it wasn't handled well, he could get burned. But he stopped suddenly and chose not to enter the factory immediately because a superior leader was coming. If he messed up in front of the superior, it would be even more humiliating. After weighing the pros and cons, He chose to wait. Wait for instructions from above. Seeing that Arthur Lee listened to reason, Harvey secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It really wasn't easy being a secretary to an impulsive leader. Fortunately, although this immediate boss occasionally acted on impulse, he was still sensible. Otherwise, he wouldn't have reached the position of second-in-command of the district. Councilman, you have to manage this, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to make the final call. The hole in the steel mill isn't a new thing. The city knows it well. They mentioned this matter in a meeting just a few days ago, thinking that letting Pitt Steel restructure and acquire it is a good method, but we must try to properly settle the laid-off workers. If we don't do it well, there are precedents for failure. The responsibility is heavy. Since the city attaches such importance to it that Deputy Mayor Bowen has come out personally, we should just act according to Mayor Bowen's instructions. Harvey said very euphemistically. To put it bluntly, this matter carries heavy responsibility, so don't take the blame onto yourself. If something goes wrong and isn't handled well, it's over. So it's better not to shoulder this responsibility. Since the superior leader has come out, let the superior take the responsibility. He can afford it. You just follow instructions. Arthur Lee thought for a moment, nodded, and said, Naturally, on the matter of the steel mill, only the city has the power to make the final decision. Harvey, you really know how to handle things. Saying that, Arthur Lee patted his shoulder with great relief. Hey, it's all thanks to your guidance. I still have to continue learning from you. Harvey didn't dare to take credit and quickly said. As they were speaking, a black Audi A6 suddenly drove up and stopped in front of the factory gate. Recognizing the license plate as a city vehicle, Arthur Lee hurriedly went forward to greet it. The door opened, and an old man in a black trench coat, about 50 years old with thinning hair, stepped out. The old man looked dignified, with deep eyes, giving off an aura of authority without anger. Sir, you're here. Arthur Lee greeted the old man. Hello, Mayor Bowen. Harvey bowed and greeted from behind. Outside of formal meetings, he omitted the deputy title. James Bowen frowned, a look of worry on his face. He asked Arthur Lee, what's the situation inside? The situation isn't good. The workers are blocking the office building and refusing to disperse. Public sentiment is volatile. Arthur Lee sighed. James Bowen's face darkened further. We must calm the situation as soon as possible to avoid more serious consequences. The interests of the workers must be reconsidered. Where is Lester Jenkins? Why hasn't he come? Arthur Lee gave a bitter laugh. He's blocked inside the office building and can't get out. Hearing that Lester Jenkins was blocked inside and couldn't even get out, James Bowen was stunned. So that guy had really incited public anger. What is Lester Jenkins doing? Go call him. Tell him I'm here and make him come out to see me. James Bowen said with a hint of anger, turning to his secretary, Ben. He knew Jenkins couldn't get out, but he wanted to see Jenkins' attitude toward this matter. If Jenkins was willing to take responsibility, he would come out no matter what. Yes, sir. I'll call him right away. Ben made the call. After a while, the call connected. Ben relayed James Bowen's words, but then he froze and hung up the phone. Sir, Jenkins says the workers are emotionally unstable, and he can't come out right now, Ben whispered back. Hearing this, James Bowen nodded. His expression was calm, but his attitude turned colder. I see. Since he can't come out, I'll go in to see him. Saying this, James Bowen started to walk toward the factory. Arthur Lee, Ben, and the others hurriedly held him back. Arthur Lee persuaded, Sir, it's too dangerous inside. You can't go. If someone must go, I'll go. What are your instructions? I'll go talk to all the workers. Arthur Lee looked like he was facing death with equanimity. James Bowen looked at him with relief and said, First, calm their emotions. Ask the workers to nominate a few representatives so everyone can sit down and talk properly. Gathering like this does not help solve anything. Tell them the city will help them tide over the difficulties, and the city leaders stand with them forever. Arthur Lee accepted the order, nodding and smiling. Yes, sir. I'll go right now. Now that he had James Bowen's instructions, as long as he followed them, any blame shouldn't fall on his head. He was naturally happy. Let's go. We'll go with you. James Bowen wasn't reassured and waved his hand. The group entered the steel mill mightily under police escort. Arriving at the clearing in front of the office building, everyone saw the black mass of people packed inside. Many were holding various protest banners, shouting for Lester Jenkins to get out. Arthur Lee shouted to the crowd, Quiet, everyone. Quiet down. Calm down. Arthur Lee's voice rang out, immediately attracting the workers' attention. They turned to look at him, but their eyes held distrust, thinking he had brought the police to drive them away. Cough, cough. Everyone calm down first. Listen to me for a moment, okay? Arthur Lee raised his hand and shouted. Who are you? Someone in the crowd shouted questioningly. This caused a look of embarrassment to appear on Arthur Lee's face. I am Councilman Arthur Lee from the district. I am here to help everyone solve the problem. Someone in the crowd recognized his identity, but shouted with dissatisfaction. Solve the problem? You want to solve the people raising the problem, right? James Bowen looked back and gave a signal to a police officer. The police officers immediately retreated. This was out of concern that the crowd's emotions were too agitated and unnecessary misunderstandings might occur. The workers on the scene shouted one after another. Now you want to solve the problem? Where were you before? Exactly. Bureaucrats protecting each other. We are the group most easily sacrificed. We insist on our rights, right? You must give us an explanation. Suspend all negotiations with Pitt Steel. The workers got angrier as they spoke, shouting in unison. Suspend negotiations. Protect workers' rights. The number of workers was large, and when they shouted together, the momentum was overwhelming. Arthur Lee was anxious, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He hurriedly said, Everyone, calm down, quiet down. Please believe that the city stands with you. We will resolutely protect the rights of the steel mill workers, but please calm down first. Don't escalate the situation. If there are issues, you can send representatives, and we can sit down and talk properly. Gathering here and shouting won't help solve the problem at all. Really, please believe me. Believe in the government. At this moment, someone shouted, No, we don't believe you. If the city hadn't demanded it, our factory wouldn't be sold to Pitt Steel, right? We demand the withdrawal of negotiations. And make Lester Jenkins come out and give us an explanation. Jenkins, get out. As the crowd became agitated again, many people surged forward, surrounding Arthur Lee and his group. Arthur Lee's heart trembled. This was going to be difficult. Why wouldn't anyone listen to him? It was too humiliating in front of the old leader. Ben saw that the situation seemed wrong. The workers hadn't calmed down. Instead, they had become more agitated. If this continued, who knew what might happen? He tugged at James Bowen's arm and whispered, Sir, it's a bit dangerous here. We should retreat first. No, I'm not leaving, James Bowen said in a deep voice. Arthur Lee, come back. I'll go talk to them. Arthur Lee tried to stop him. No, it's too dangerous. I think we should go back and discuss a long-term plan. Yes, Mayor Bowen, let's avoid this for now. We can talk when the workers are calmer, Harvey chimed in. But James Bowen waved his hand, disagreeing with their views. If we don't solve it now, when will we solve it? The matter of the steel mill must reach a conclusion today. Don't stop me. I'm going to talk to them. Just as James Bowen was about to step forward, a burst of car honking suddenly sounded behind him. A luxurious Mercedes-Benz appeared before everyone's eyes. The honking attracted everyone's attention, and the workers quieted down, looking toward the sound. The car stopped near Arthur Lee, and a young man in a suit stepped out. The young man looked scholarly and had a refined temperament. Who is this? Arthur Lee turned to ask Harvey. Currently, not many people in the entire Chicago area could afford Mercedes, let alone an S-Class. I don't know. I don't recognize him. Harvey was also stunned and shook his head. They saw the young man get out of the car and jump directly onto the hood. He shouted to the workers, uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters. My name is Ethan Ford. My dad is Frank Ford. I count as a child of this mill, too. I can understand your feelings, but please listen to me for a moment. Let's sit down together and discuss this properly. I believe we can definitely find a solution that satisfies everyone. Hearing the name Frank Ford, the workers in the crowd naturally recognized Ethan. After all, everyone in the factory knew that the Ford family had produced a good youngster, filial, good at studies. He was the state valedictorian this year, bringing honor to his ancestors. This had long been a story in the factory. Ethan had become the child from another family, in the workers' mouths, a benchmark for hoping their own children would succeed. Moreover, Frank Ford was easygoing and often helped others. He had good interpersonal relationships in the factory and got along well with many mid-level managers. It's Ethan. Ethan, you speak. Uncle will listen to you first. Everyone, be quiet for a moment. Knowing that Ethan was one of their own, a worker's offspring, the workers were naturally willing to listen to his suggestions first. Ethan raised his arms and shouted, I know our factory is negotiating an acquisition with Pitt Steel, and some things have definitely affected our rights. Suspend negotiations. Those responsible must be held accountable. This is mandatory, right? Ethan is right. The workers were overjoyed, feeling that finally someone was speaking for them. These words were spoken entirely from the workers' perspective and stance. It was what they wanted to hear, so naturally, he gained everyone's support. James Bowen looked up at Ethan, surprise in his eyes. He hadn't expected this young man to have such ability. Ethan took a deep breath and continued to shout, "Uncles, aunts, brothers, sisters, even if we tear down the office building today, tear down the factory, will we get the benefits that belong to us? Will we?" The workers on the scene looked at each other, then shook their heads one after another. Ethan continued, "I know everyone is anxious, but the negotiations haven't ended yet. Nothing is set in stone. There's still room to turn things around. Blocking people inside, so they can't come out means they don't dare to come out and talk to us. Without dialogue, how can we solve the problem?" The workers felt what he said made sense, and many nodded in agreement. This made Arthur Lee feel a bit embarrassed. He hadn't expected a situation he couldn't control to be controlled by a young kid. However, he also knew the difference. This young man, named Ethan Ford, was a child of a worker. His father should also be a factory employee. His identity was consistent with that of all the workers, and their interests aligned. Coupled with the fact that these workers seemed to trust this young man very much, they quieted down. Furthermore, Ethan spoke from beginning to end as if he stood with the workers. This was very important. Only then would there be trust. Ethan cleared his throat and shouted, "Blocking here isn't a solution either. So, I propose that we send a few representatives now to talk to the factory leaders, to talk to Pitt Steel, and to talk to the city leaders. I just saw the city leaders' cars too. They should be right here. We should believe that they will help us properly resolve this issue. Isn't this much more useful than us besieging this place?" Ethan's words persuaded the workers on the scene. After all, people listen when something makes sense. That's true. Ethan makes sense. Everyone, let's choose a few representatives and then go back for now. A burly man with a buzz cut shouted from the crowd. Seeing him speak, other workers nodded in agreement. Those holding banners put them down. The situation on the scene was finally brought under control. Arthur Lee breathed a sigh of relief. This fire was finally extinguished, all thanks to this young man. If not for him, who knows how it would have ended. He looked at Ethan, still standing on the car hood, with a look of appreciation. James Bowen suddenly patted his shoulder and said, "Arthur, thanks to this young lad." The implication was that if Ethan hadn't saved the scene, Arthur Lee would have lost face completely. Arthur Lee laughed awkwardly. Yes, sir, you are right." James Bowen chuckled lightly and said, "Wait a moment, bring this young man to see me." Dusk. In the plant manager's office at the mill, James Bowen stood with his hands behind his back by the window, looking at the slightly dilapidated factory area. The machines were covered in oil stains and rust, long unfit for heavy use. These traces were witnesses to history, witnessing the industrial development of the region. But they were no longer applicable to the current economy. Backward production capacity was destined for only one path: elimination. "Sir, the equipment in the mill looks quite old," Ben commented from the side with emotion. James Bowen sighed softly. "Yes, from 71. It's been almost 30 years now. When the factory was founded, my old boss came to cut the ribbon. At that time, the first and second mills had already moved out. This was the only seedling left. The city attached great importance to it. To support the mill's development and increase production, the city even allocated special funds. Time flies. After all these years, the mill has aged. Both the products and production efficiency can no longer keep up with market demand. Transformation is impossible now. It will fade into the river of history like other factories." Ben heard the emotion in the leader's words and understood what he was lamenting. Every person, every object perhaps, has its corresponding historical mission. When they complete their mission, they become part of history. "Sir, being acquired and restructured should be the best ending for the mill, right?" Ben asked James Bowen in a questioning tone, though both knew the answer. "Yes, it's the only way. Like the rubber factory before, it didn't even qualify for acquisition and ended up in bankruptcy liquidation. That debt hole had to be filled by the city's finance. That was a large sum of money," James Bowen said calmly. Knock, knock, knock. At this moment, a knock sounded at the door. A staff member opened the door and said, "Mayor Bowen, Councilman Lee, and Mr. Ethan Ford are here." "Good, please invite them in." James Bowen turned around. A moment later, Arthur Lee and Ethan appeared at the doorway together. "Mr. Ford, this is our deputy mayor, Mayor Bowen," Arthur Lee introduced. Ethan sized up James Bowen. This old man had dignity without anger. He indeed had the air of a high-ranking official. "Hello. Nice to meet you, Mayor Bowen." Ethan took the initiative to extend his hand, smiling and greeting with an attitude neither humble nor arrogant. He knew best what kind of political and business relationships to develop and how to interact with figures of such rank. He knew these things by heart. The deputy mayor was the second in command of the municipal government, in charge of specific affairs, economy, security, investment promotion, etc. The larger the jurisdiction, the greater the power. It was a position with real power, second only to the mayor. Dealing with such figures required sincerity and substance, because those who could reach this position were no ordinary people. Therefore, Ethan had a principle of sincerity when interacting with these people, while not getting entangled in interests. Once involved in interests, it was easy to get trapped and become grasshoppers on the same rope. Although it looked glamorous to others, Ethan knew it was extremely dangerous. One slip could lead to implication, carrying huge risks. Sincerity, while maintaining distance, was essential. Ethan Ford, the state valedictorian this year. Haha, indeed a talent. James Bowen shook his hand and praised him. Praising him first would make the chat atmosphere less tense. A smile appeared on Ethan's face. Just luck, not worth mentioning. Ethan looked him over with some surprise, feeling that Ethan didn't seem nervous at all. Any other young man would be somewhat nervous in front of him. Many would stutter. Young man, you're truly modest. How can there be luck in becoming valedictorian? Haha, sit down, everyone. James Bowen gestured. Arthur Lee and Ethan took their seats. James Bowen pondered for a moment, then first said to Ethan, Ethan, speaking of which, thanks to you today for controlling the situation. I have to thank you properly for this matter. These words were kind and cordial, like a spring breeze. Ethan nodded and said politely, You are too kind, Mayor Bowen. This is what I should do. I am also a child of the mill. I don't want the situation to spiral out of control. That's not good for anyone. Haha. Yes, you're very clear about it. Indeed, it cannot spiral out of control, James Bowen praised. We also want to resolve this matter as soon as possible so the workers have no worries. We called you over today because, as a factory child, we want to hear your views. You are the valedictorian. Your mind should be more active, haha. Ethan thought for a moment and said solemnly, Judging from the current situation, normally, there are only two solutions. Either Pitt Steel raises the acquisition price, or the city provides financial support. Arthur Lee shook his head and sighed. Neither method is highly feasible. We can't put pressure on Pitt Steel. At worst, they'll withdraw the acquisition proposal, and the hole in the factory will be even bigger. As for financial support, getting $3 million out of the Treasury right now isn't impossible, but the district financial situation is quite tight. His second point was actually quite euphemistic. If money were allocated from the district finance, it would definitely be a massive hemorrhage, and he wasn't willing. If the allocation came from city finance, solving the problem would be no issue. James Bowen tapped the armrest, turned to stare at Arthur Lee, and said indifferently, I didn't say the district finance had to pay. What are you nervous about? James Bowen saw through Arthur Lee's petty thoughts at a glance, but didn't expose him. Arthur Lee gave a dry laugh. Sir, I thought. Yes, actually wherever it comes from, it comes. I have no objection. How dared he have an objection? He was just stating his position. James Bowen tapped the armrest with his finger and said to the two, Financial allocation can indeed solve the immediate problem, but just handing out money to fill the hole won't work. If Tom gets financial allocation, what if Dick doesn't? What if Harry wants to fight for financial allocation too? Distribute based on who makes the most noise. His words immediately pointed out the difficulty of financial support. Now, the transformation or elimination of old enterprises was the general trend. A large number of factories with backward production capacity were bound to be eliminated. This was the growing pain that economic upgrading had to go through. But if the steel mill received a large financial allocation because of this incident, what would the workers of the factories that closed before without allocation think? People worry not about scarcity, but about inequality. That was the principle. If other factories saw that they could fight for financial allocation just by making trouble like this, there would be too much chaos in the future. These were the concerns in James Bowen's heart, and the reason why financial support could not be given easily. That was the last resort for stability, the bottom line. Arthur Lee understood upon hearing this, realizing the difficulty. He said with distress, Sir, you make sense. This matter is truly difficult to handle. James Bowen turned to look at Ethan and suddenly asked, You just said those two plans were for normal situations. Then, presumably, you have an unconventional plan? Huh? Unconventional plan? Arthur Lee looked at Ethan in surprise, remembering Ethan's words just now, and realized. This young man had an unconventional plan? The eyes of everyone in the room converged on Ethan, wanting to know what his unconventional plan was. Ethan smiled and said, "Actually, we can change our thinking. What the workers want is nothing more than an income or a stable future income. Compared to the former, more people hope for the latter, so their days have hope. If they're laid off, finding a place to be reemployed solves it. If we can solve the workers' subsequent employment problem, they would actually be willing to accept relatively less severance compensation. After all, the current situation is not optimistic or clear. Having a rice bowl, having the certainty of work, is more appealing than a lump sum of money. I just asked the 6 worker representatives. They also hope the government can solve the employment problem. Even if the factory closes, if they have work and can collect a salary every month, they are happier than most." Before Ethan could finish, Arthur Lee interrupted directly, shaking his head and rejecting it. "How is that possible? Which enterprise is willing to accept nearly 1,000 employees now? And they're all entry-level skilled workers. Even a big factory can't swallow that. I think this plan won't work either." James Bowen glanced at him and said, "Let him finish first. Discuss whether it can be done later." Arthur Lee knew he had misspoken, gave a dry laugh, and admitted his mistake. Yes, I accept your criticism, sir." Ethan smiled slightly and continued, "If there are no positions, then we create positions. I think enterprises can cooperate with the municipal government to actively provide re-employment positions for laid-off workers. No municipal financial subsidy is needed. Only certain land, tax rebates, and policy support are required. In this way, laid-off workers can have the opportunity for re-employment, and there is no need to trouble financial allocation. The best part is that it can create a precedent and provide case support for solving similar incidents in the future. If this plan is implemented well, it can achieve a 4-way win for laid-off workers, the municipal government, the factory, and the enterprise." When Ethan said this, everyone in the office was stunned into silence. After several breaths, James Bowen slapped the armrest excitedly and praised, "Brilliant! This method is truly brilliant. This method is indeed unconventional, completely blazing a new trail." James Bowen had been in politics for many years. He knew instantly if a method was feasible. Ethan's plan of seeking cooperation with enterprises to create new positions and drive the re-employment of laid-off workers was indeed feasible. The municipal government only needed to provide policy convenience, land, finance, tax rebates, and other support to help the enterprise develop. In this way, it could absorb laid-off workers well. Otherwise, no company was foolish. How could they only increase employee costs without increasing revenue? Once there was supporting policy support, not only could it better support enterprise development, but development would also bring new positions, giving laid-off workers stable jobs. This young man was worthy of being the state valedictorian. To think he could come up with such a good solution. And he only needed to think for a moment to understand the key to this: supporting policies. James Bowen understood the key point in a flash. He stared straight at Ethan and continued to ask, "This method is feasible. I can immediately push for the formulation of supporting policies. But do you think those enterprises dare to bravely shoulder such social responsibility and risk? After all, in business, there is no guarantee of making money. If they absorb laid-off workers but revenue doesn't keep up, the burden of personnel costs will be huge, enough to drag down a company. To do this requires sufficient courage, and it also requires the person in charge of the enterprise to have a strong sense of social responsibility. Which company do you think has such courage and social responsibility?" Actually, he had a list of enterprises in his mind, but he knew that since Ethan proposed this method, there was a high probability he had his own ideas, so he asked Ethan. Ethan grinned and said, "I think West 4 Group can." James Bowen was stunned. "What? West 4 Group? Ben, have you heard of this company? Is it one of the top 500 in our state?" James Bowen turned to ask Ben. He thought maybe he was getting old and had forgotten which top 500 state enterprise or listed company this was. Ben shook his head, equally surprised. "Sir, I don't know either. I haven't heard of this company." Arthur Lee searched his mind for a moment, but had no impression of this West 4 Group either. "Never heard of it." "Sir, I haven't heard of it either." "Harvey, do you know?" Harvey nodded and replied, "Councilman, I have heard of this company. Last time the company opened, it seems the city TV station went to interview them. I watched that news for a bit. I heard it wasn't established long ago, but it has already captured the computer accessories market in Chicago. The development momentum is quite fierce." Oh, so it's a company selling computer parts. Arthur Lee showed a look of realization. These days, the easy money was in getting agency rights to buy goods, preferably representing foreign products. With a certain degree of monopoly, it was very profitable. Hearing this, James Bowen turned to ask Ethan, "Is this company selling computer parts?" Ethan nodded and responded, "Yes, Mayor Bowen." "Actually," Arthur Lee interrupted, "Ethan, how can you be so sure that Westford Group has such responsibility and courage? I think we still have to personally go to the company to investigate. We have to understand the thoughts of the person in charge of the enterprise." Ethan twitched the corner of his mouth and continued, "Councilman Lee, I think this matter isn't difficult to solve because—" Arthur Lee thought Ethan was anxious, seemingly rushing to get benefits for others, and raised his hand. "It's not a question of difficulty. Even if we want policy support, we have to see if this enterprise is suitable, right?" James Bowen agreed with Arthur Lee this time and said unhurriedly, "Yes, what kind of company is Westford Group? What is its strength? Does the person in charge have this willingness? We have to understand clearly. Ben, make a note. Contact the person in charge of this enterprise later and make an appointment to chat." Ben nodded and responded, "Yes, sir. I noted it down. I'll contact them first thing tomorrow morning." Ethan smiled helplessly and said, "Mayor Bowen, I don't think we need to make another appointment. I'm right here." James Bowen didn't react. He looked at Ethan with surprise and teased, "Young man, what are you saying?" "I mean making an appointment with the person in charge of Westford Group, not you." Ethan pointed helplessly at his own face and laughed dryly. "Mayor Bowen, actually, I am the person in charge of Westford Group." Arthur Lee almost spat out a mouthful of tea, turning to look at him in astonishment. The others in the room also stared at him in surprise, full of disbelief. James Bowen was a bit confused and asked in disbelief, What? You are the person in charge of Westford Group." Ethan pursed his lips, stood up, straightened his suit, then took out a stack of business cards from his pocket and handed them to James Bowen with both hands. "Mayor Bowen, this is my card. Please take a look." Then he handed them to the others in the room. James Bowen saw that the exquisite business card read, Westford Group, President and CEO, Ethan Ford. The card also featured the red maple leaf logo of Westford Group. My God, this young man in his early 20s really was the president of Westford Group. He was bewildered, shocked in his heart. It felt incredible. How old was this young man to have the ability to found an enterprise? And was his background really a worker's child? If he hadn't said so, one would have thought he was a second-generation rich kid entrepreneur. Seeing the card, the others also showed shock, looking incredulously back and forth between the card and Ethan's innocent, sincere, smiling face. "Ethan, you really are the president of Westford Group?" Arthur Lee asked in amazement, still unable to believe it. "Yes, the genuine article." Ethan responded with a smile, then sat back in his seat. Truly young and promising." Arthur Lee felt he had lost his composure just now and hurriedly straightened his face to praise him. James Bowen's expression gradually calmed down, and his gaze toward Ethan was already different. "Young man, oh no, I should call you President Ford," James Bowen chuckled. Ethan bowed slightly. "Mayor Bowen, better to call me Ethan. Elders all call me that." Saying this brought their relationship closer, turning it into one between an elder and a junior. James Bowen felt comfortable hearing it, secretly praising Ethan for understanding human sophistication and knowing how to speak. James Bowen stared at him and asked with a smile, "Huh, then I'll call you Ethan. By the way, Ethan, you just said Westford Group has such courage and responsibility. Since you are the person in charge, I want to ask you, why do you dare to do such a thing? You must be clear that blindly absorbing and expanding so many staff is not a simple matter. The disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Assuming such high personnel costs for no reason. If you can't create enough revenue, the personnel costs might drag down the company. Why do you dare? Are you not afraid that even with policy support, you will fail?" After finishing, James Bowen stared at him tightly, those slightly turbid eyes seemingly possessing the ability to see through people. Ethan smiled calmly and replied, "Mayor Bowen, the reason is simple. Because I am American. That's all. Since the founding of this country, countless pioneers have shed blood and tears, sacrificing their lives to build this nation. How can we be people who suck the blood of the country? I founded the enterprise not to monopolize means of production. That is the behavior of a ruthless capitalist. I founded the enterprise with the goal of national greatness. I often tell myself that if I want to be a national entrepreneur, I must shoulder more and greater social responsibilities. I have long been mentally prepared for this." Ethan's words moved everyone present. James Bowen could also tell that Ethan's words were sincere. His tone was calm but resonant. With young people of such ambition, how could the country not prosper? How could it not be strong? If the youth are strong, the country is strong. James Bowen couldn't help applauding and praised. Good, Ethan. It's very good that you have such awareness. Since you have a heart to do this, rest assured, we will fully support you. Hearing this, Ethan couldn't help but reveal a smile. That was the sentence he was waiting for. To do business domestically, one must get sufficient support from the municipal government, clear relationships, and establish good government business relations. Only then could the career be made bigger and stronger, steady and far-reaching. Now that he had connected with James Bowen and had his support, West Ford Group's future actions would be much more secure. Thank you for your trust and support, Mayor Bowen. West Ford Group will definitely be able to shoulder this burden, Ethan said seriously. James Bowen smiled with relief, then said solemnly, I am very happy you have this confidence. But, speaking of which, the steel mill has over 1,000 employees. What business does your West Ford Group have that can accommodate so many people? Re-employing 1,000 laid-off workers was no easy task. Aside from massive labor-intensive industries, it was hard to support so much labor employment. How exactly to re-employ them, and what they would do, this was James Bowen's most pressing concern. Ethan, are you planning to open some kind of factory? Arthur Lee turned to ask. In his concept, only opening a factory could accommodate so much labor. Ethan nodded and said, yes, but not entirely. Mayor Bowen, Councilman Lee, allow me to introduce another business of our group first, West Ford E-Commerce. West Ford E-Commerce. What is that? James Bowen asked in confusion. He had never come into contact with e-commerce in his life and had no concept of it. Ethan understood his confusion. Leaders of that generation weren't very familiar with internet businesses because the internet had only been developing domestically for a few years. On the contrary, Arthur Lee asked in surprise, is it a business like eBay, selling things online? Arthur Lee, being younger, had heard of the internet industry. Ethan nodded in response. Correct, business similar to that. Currently, our West Ford e-commerce platform has officially launched. The platform's main products are 3C home appliances and computer accessories. We have already started arranging for more products to enter the platform, providing users with more categories and high-quality products to select from. However, there are currently 3 main aspects restricting the development of e-commerce. First, the logistics system is unsound. Second, the financial payment system is not yet perfect. Third, internet infrastructure is not yet fully popularized, leading to insufficient new internet user volume. The latter 2 difficulties require some time. There's no helping that. But the first difficulty must be solved in advance. Solving the logistics system, accelerating the flow of goods, and improving the user shopping experience. This is one of the key factors for the success of an e-commerce platform. 3 months ago, West Ford Group began laying out a self-built logistics system, establishing West Ford Logistics Company. We have already started scouting locations for regional warehouses. According to the plan, we will first cover 4 cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and Houston, and then successively cover the coastal Tier 1 cities and provincial capitals. Establishing this logistics system requires huge funds, and we cannot do it in one step. However, logistics for the initial 4 cities, that is no problem. We plan to build a regional warehouse in Chicago first, accompanied by a logistics park, mainly radiating to the surrounding Midwest states. We strive to achieve a 7-day delivery shopping experience in the provinces near the regional warehouse. Therefore, the West Ford Logistics Warehouse and Logistics Park indeed need a large number of positions: warehouse management, picking, distribution, etc. The plan may require 700 positions. With the future development of the internet, the e-commerce platform will definitely ride the wind and have broad prospects. Besides West Ford Logistics, West Ford Group plans to establish West Ford Apparel Factory and West Ford Electronics Factory, entering physical manufacturing. Conforming to the boom in global trade, physical manufacturing will welcome huge development in the future. Ethan's words silenced everyone on the scene. James Bowen looked at Ethan with disbelief. It was hard to believe that this young man had such keen insight into the future and was unswerving in his understanding of it. How did he manage to have such confidence in the future? A moment later, James Bowen came back to his senses and sighed with emotion. Ethan, West Ford Group has big plans. Then what kind of support do you want? Ethan said seriously, Mayor Bowen, just as I said before, I want land transfer concessions, tax rebate subsidies, and industry support policies. Firstly, this can reduce the land cost for the construction of a logistics park, warehouses, and factories. Secondly, there is no need for financial subsidies. After the enterprise becomes profitable, subsidies can be given through a certain degree of tax rebates. This belongs to incremental subsidies and does not need financial support. Thirdly, the municipal government needs to issue logistics and e-commerce related industry support policies and fast-track policy approval, allowing Chicago to realize e-commerce industry conditions as soon as possible and achieve a national first-mover advantage. In the internet age, speed is very necessary. One step ahead, always ahead. Hearing this, James Bowen was shaken to the core. He hadn't expected Ethan to see things so clearly, his thoughts so lucid. This young man was not simple. He pondered Ethan's words carefully. After a moment, he made a decision. All right, Ethan, what you said makes sense and fits the current situation. Regarding industrial land, Chicago's current policy is very loose, supporting various capital investments to build factories in Chicago. Concessions for your logistics park, warehouse, and factory land. That is no problem. As for the remaining two items, they are feasible, but I need to go back and study them properly with my colleagues, reach a consensus, and form specific documents. This will take a little time, but I promise you, as long as it is beneficial to Chicago, the policy must be implemented. His last sentence was to give Ethan a reassurance pill. Ethan naturally understood and smiled. Yes, thank you, Mayor Bowen. James Bowen turned to Arthur Lee and said, Arthur, later you and Ethan work out the re-employment plan for the steel mill workers. Then go talk to the steel mill worker representatives about the content of the document. I believe they will definitely be happy hearing this news and will definitely support it. After you reach a consensus, form a document for city review and approval. Then publicize it to all the steel mill workers so they understand. West Ford Group provides employment positions for steel mill workers, and the municipal government provides comprehensive support to West Ford Group. In this way, steel mill workers can continue to be employed, West Ford Group can expand its business, the municipal government can solve the problem of laid-off workers' employment, Pitt Steel can smoothly acquire the steel mill, and the steel mill's debt problem gets resolved. This is a move that achieves multiple goals, and it also proves one point. Development is the absolute principle. Arthur Lee stood up and bowed in response. Yes, sir, I understand your meaning. Rest assured, I will do my best to handle matters here. James Bowen also stood up, nodded, and then turned to Ethan. Ethan, whether this matter can be resolved perfectly depends entirely on you. Ethan stood up and shook his hand heavily, saying seriously, Mayor Bowen, I will do my best to settle the steel mill workers. You can supervise at any time. No need for supervision. I will continue to follow up on this matter. If you need any support, feel free to come find me. James Bowen laughed heartily. Afterward, the two sides exchanged pleasantries for a while, and Ethan took his leave, ending the meeting. James Bowen personally saw Ethan to the door, watching him leave. A moment later, James Bowen sighed with emotion. Arthur, such a young man is truly rare. Arthur Lee smiled. Yes, so young, yet establishing such a business. Unprecedented. However, this can also be counted as an opportunity for him. If he can really build the logistics park and regional warehouse, West Ford e-commerce can indeed lead the country. James Bowen shook his head and smiled. Is this considered an opportunity? We owe West Ford Group a favor. Of course, this kid probably calculated to make us owe this favor. Good calculation and wonderful calculation, huh? Arthur Lee was stunned. He hadn't thought of that layer. Looking at it this way, it really seemed Ethan was calculating, wanting exactly this relationship. This young man, his depth was profound. James Bowen returned to the office, pacing back and forth twice, seeming to be thinking about something. He suddenly stopped and said to Arthur Lee, someone still has to take responsibility for this worker riot. Go call Lester Jenkins and George Miller here. I want to ask them personally. Meanwhile, in the conference room, the negotiation team of the steel mill was full of gloom. Causing such a big commotion and alarming Mayor Bowen, they probably wouldn't get away with it easily. Manager Jenkins, how do you think Mayor Bowen will handle this matter? Will the city provide funding? A middle-aged executive asked in a low voice. I don't even want the city to provide funding anymore. With this mess, if the city provides funding, we're finished, Lester Jenkins sighed. Then I think it's up in the air. Seeing today's situation, for the sake of social stability, Mayor Bowen probably has this thought. The middle-aged executive analyzed. George Miller, on the side, laughed instead. It's good if they allocate it. Deal with it quickly. I should be retiring soon anyway. To properly handle the steel mill matter, he had been running around, busy from beginning to end, always thinking of the workers. But Lester Jenkins pulled such a stunt, making him an accomplice, damned if he did and damned if he didn't. He was truly tired, mentally exhausted. If this matter could be resolved satisfactorily, he had already moved to retire early. Old Miller, you just want to retire and be done with it. But how can things be that simple? The responsibility that needs to be shouldered hasn't been shouldered yet. Believe it or not, before long, Mayor Bowen will be looking for the two of us, Lester sneered. George stood up and looked out the window. Night had covered the entire city, and distant neon lights flickered with brilliant radiance. Shoulder it then. I've never been afraid of taking responsibility, George said indifferently. Suddenly, the door opened, and Arthur Lee appeared in the doorway. Lester Jenkins, George Miller, come with me. Mayor Bowen wants to see you. Arthur Lee scanned the two solemnly. Lester's heart skipped a beat. What was coming had finally come. Yes, Councilman Lee, we're coming right now. Lester bowed and scraped, responding hurriedly. The two followed Arthur Lee to the office to meet James Bowen. James Bowen stood in front of the window. He didn't sit, so the two could only stand behind him with their hands bound. My dear Bowen. Lester was about to make some excuse when he was interrupted by James Bowen. I heard the acquisition price you discussed with Pitt Steel is $25 million. James Bowen turned around, staring at him and asking. Yes, Mayor Bowen. In the most recent negotiation, this is the price both parties can still accept. This is also the consensus reached internally by our negotiation team, Lester replied. He meant that this was the result of everyone's hard work, so even if there was blame, he shouldn't carry it alone. James Bowen turned to ask George. George Miller, do you also approve of this price? George nodded helplessly and replied. This money is only just enough to fill the steel mill's debt, but I couldn't disagree. Hearing this, Lester raised an eyebrow, feeling that George was intentionally targeting him. In this negotiation, he indeed held the main negotiating status and the power to make the final decision. Mayor Bowen, this negotiation was mainly because our position was too passive. This couldn't be helped, Lester said with a bitter face, acting very aggrieved. James Bowen suddenly walked quickly to the desk, slammed it angrily, and cursed, Bastard! Just because the negotiation is passive, you should sacrifice the rights of 1,000 factory workers. Lester Jenkins, was it you who proposed lowering the workers' severance pay? If we hadn't arrived here today, I think you would have been torn to pieces by the workers sooner or later, and you still have the face to stand in front of me and complain about grievances. Outrageous. Scoundrel. Lester was scolded severely and dared not make a sound, lowering his head, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. James Bowen slammed the table again, pointing at Lester and George, demanding, Speak, who proposed this negotiation plan? Lester's face was pale, and he didn't say a word. George just glanced at Lester and didn't speak either. Seeing that neither spoke, James Bowen knew clearly in his heart. Lester was the plant manager and the leader of the negotiation team. Without his nod, who dared to propose this at the discussion meeting? Good. Neither of you will speak, right? James Bowen was so angry his chest heaved, breathing rapidly. Ben brought a glass of water up and persuaded, Sir, watch your health. James Bowen took the water glass, drank a mouthful, and waved his hand. Fine, if you won't say, I'll send someone to investigate myself. Fortunately, the 1,000 factory workers have a place to go in the future, and no financial allocation is needed. You should also feel lucky. Otherwise, every single one of you wouldn't be able to run away. Hearing that James Bowen wanted to investigate, Lester's face turned even paler. But hearing that the workers had a place to go, George was stunned and asked in confusion, Huh? Mayor Bowen, the workers' matter is settled? No financial allocation needed? Did Pitt Steel concede? James Bowen sat on the sofa, caught his breath, and said, We have reached a preliminary intention with the company. They will provide positions, and we will provide policy support. Even if the steel mill workers are laid off, they can be re-employed immediately. Later, I will have Arthur follow up on this area. You two cooperate with Arthur's work. Hearing that, George was overjoyed and clapped excitedly. Good. That's wonderful. Hearing that the 1,000 workers would have jobs in the future, his heart finally landed. This was more exciting than winning severance pay for them. Severance pay was one time, but work was stable and long-term. With jobs, workers' families wouldn't panic. Work was the most important thing for workers. He believed the workers would be very happy to hear this news. However, which company had such a sense of responsibility to actually be willing to accommodate 1,000 steel mill workers? If he met the person in charge of this enterprise in the future, he must thank them properly. Thank you, Mayor Bowen, Councilman Lee, for your care. George bowed to the two from the bottom of his heart, expressing his feelings. James Bowen smiled and waved his hand. All right, it's getting late. You go back first. Starting tomorrow, Arthur will guide your work. Yes. Lester and George responded at the same time, then withdrew. It was already 8, 0 p.m. when George returned to his home in the workers' residential compound. He opened the door. "I'm back. Dad's back. Are you hungry? I'll go heat up the food for you." Lily walked up, took his dirty jacket, and hung it on the hook by the door. "Hey, no need, no need. I bought some roast beef on the way back. It's enough to go with drinks, haha." George laughed. Seeing that he seemed to be in a good mood, Lily asked in surprise, "You're in the mood to drink? Is the matter with the factory workers resolved? Do you know I was worried to death about you at home? Hearing you were blocked in the office building, I was scared out of my wits." George changed into slippers and chuckled. "It's fine. Everything's fine now. Today, Mayor Bowen said there is a company willing to accept the factory workers for re-employment. This matter can be considered closed." Ha! He finished changing slippers and went to the kitchen to wash his hands, then took out the Macallan 18 Ethan gave him, ready to enjoy this dinner happily. Lily sat aside and asked in confusion, "Which company is so good, having such great strength to accept 1,000 workers?" George stuffed a large chopstick full of roast beef into his mouth and mumbled, "Seems to be called something West Ford Group. I haven't heard of it either. Sigh. Anyway, Mayor Bowen made the final decision, so it can't be bad. West Ford Group? What does that company do? Why does it sound a bit familiar?" Lily scratched her head and asked in confusion, feeling the name was indeed familiar, but couldn't remember where she heard it. I don't know either. Who cares? As long as this matter is solved, they're the great benefactors of our factory. Otherwise, your husband would definitely have fallen on this matter." George sighed with emotion. "True, but you were also implicated by Manager Jenkins." Lily sighed. Although she knew this, she had no choice. Who let Lester Jenkins be the immediate superior? George patted her hand gently and comforted. "Sigh, old woman, don't worry. It's fine now. By the way, didn't you say Gracie and Ethan came back? Where are they? Why don't I see them?" Lily rolled her eyes and teased. "Your daughter, she won't stay home anymore. As soon as she comes back, she runs to the opposite door. I think in the future, even her in-laws won't be able to drive her away." This child has your style from back then." George chuckled. Lily blushed, slapped his chest, and spat. "Annoying, what nonsense are you talking about? What do you mean my style from back then? If it weren't for you shamelessly pursuing me back then, I wouldn't have married you." George laughed mischievously and teased. Hee, it's too late for you to regret it now." Saying that, George hugged Lily in his arms. Hey, old man, what are you doing? Aren't you afraid the kids will see?" Lily struggled symbolically in his arms and said with a blushing face, Aren't they not home? What are you afraid of?" George said thick-skinnedly, For an old married couple. Aren't you ashamed?" Lily rolled her eyes at him, but still let him hold her. The two embraced tightly, sharing warmth. Suddenly, the sound of the door opening came from the entrance. "Mom, I'm back. I just heard voices. Is Dad back?" "Auntie, I'm here." Immediately after, the voices of Grace and Ethan came from the door. When Grace and Ethan saw the scene in the dining room, they both froze, standing dumbfounded on the spot. Ethan twitched the corner of his mouth. Gracie, we seem to have come at a bad time, huh?" Grace naturally knew they had come back at an awkward time. Mom, Dad, we didn't see anything. We're gonna go play." Grace grabbed Ethan's hand and tried to walk back out. Lily sat up straight, a look of embarrassment on her face, but she forced herself to be calm and said, "It's so late. Where do you want to play? Come back here." George coughed dryly twice and turned to Ethan. Cough, will Ethan come over and have a few drinks with me?" Ethan scratched his head and laughed dryly. Sure, no problem. "Ethan, I'll go get you a set of tableware." Lily stood up and said. As she passed George, she secretly pinched his shoulder hard. George grimaced in pain, but dared not make a sound. At home, heaven is big, earth is big, but the wife is the biggest. He dare not complain at all. Ethan watched, snickering secretly. So his future father-in-law, the majestic vice plant manager, had this side too. "Here, Uncle, have a cigarette." Ethan took out his cigarettes from his pocket and handed a Parliament to George. "Oh, Parliament. Ethan, seems I can only smoke Parliament when I'm with you." George laughed at himself. With his salary as a vice plant manager, he dared not smoke Parliament. Instead, he relied on the junior's filial piety to smoke it. "Uncle, I still have a few cartons at home. I was planning to bring one over for you. I'll bring it to you later." Ethan grinned. George smiled. "All right, I know you have a good heart, but Uncle still has to advise you. Starting a business isn't easy now. You have to be thrifty, you know." He knew Ethan had his own business now, opening a computer repair shop. Business seemed okay, but he couldn't spend money randomly. Entrepreneurship meant spending money on the cutting edge so the business could grow bigger and stronger in the future. Otherwise, would he guard a few computer repair shops for a lifetime? Yes, rest assured. I'm definitely calculating carefully, Ethan responded repeatedly. Seeing that he could listen, George felt very relieved and said kindly, as long as you know, Ethan, although you are smart in your studies, you still need to learn more about doing business. If there is anything you don't understand in the future, you can come ask me, or go ask your Uncle Brooks. Hey, no problem. I definitely need to learn more from you too. Ethan poured him a drink smoothly. Gray sat beside Ethan, muttering in a low voice, Stinky Ethan, smoking again, stinks to death, wait and see. I won't let you near me later. Ethan turned back and whispered, Hey, Gracie, don't be like that. Aren't I accompanying Uncle for a few drinks? Grace pouted and didn't speak. In front of her parents and outsiders, she took great care of Ethan's face. This little princess is too lazy to scold you now. But once we get back to the room, see how this little princess deals with you. Lily brought out a bowl and chopsticks and placed them in front of Ethan, saying kindly, Ethan, I'll go heat up some dishes for you. If you want to eat anything else, tell Annie, and Annie will make it for you. Hearing there was food, Grace hurriedly raised her hand and shouted, Mom, I want sweet and sour ribs. Lily rolled her eyes at her and said, Eat. You only know how to eat ribs all day. If you want to eat, make it yourself. Grace? Hey, Mom, you are my mom. Who is your biological child anyway? You aren't allowed to treat us so differently. Detestable epsilon tria. Lily ignored her, turning kindly to Ethan instead. Ethan, is there anything else you want to eat? Ethan laughed dryly. Annie, no need. Just having a few drinks with Uncle is enough. There are plenty of dishes. I won't trouble you. Sigh, what trouble? This child, really? There's still half a chicken in the fridge. I'll make you a soy sauce chicken. That's a free-range chicken raised for 2.5 years. It's delicious when braised soft, Lily said as she walked into the kitchen to get busy. Ethan scratched his head and smiled. 2.5 years old? The taste should be quite beautiful, right? Forget it, as long as there's food. Grace was jealous on the side. What's so good about it? Raised for 2.5 years. The meat must be tough. I won't eat it. Ethan chuckled. Gracie, you don't need to be envious, jealous, and hateful. At worst, I'll save a drumstick for you later, all right? Grace bit her finger and said arrogantly, Count yourself sensible. George poured Ethan a drink personally and suddenly asked, Ethan, have you two discussed when to get married? Cough. What? Ethan almost choked on his own saliva, not knowing why George would suddenly ask this. He felt the nervousness of being interrogated by his father-in-law. Grace blushed, glared with her pretty eyes, and said, Dad, what are you saying? We're only freshmen now. Besides, we haven't reached the marriage age yet. George showed a loving, fatherly smile. Haha, what are you nervous about? I'm just asking. What? Haven't you discussed it? Grace's face was flushed red. She pouted. Who discusses such things so early? Dad, stop rushing the marriage so soon, okay? She had actually thought about this question long ago, but neither of them was of age yet. She was barely 19, and Ethan was only 20. It would be at least another 2 years, roughly around graduation. Getting married after graduation, that would be very nice too. All right, I won't rush you. You plan it yourselves. Come, Ethan, drink. George raised his glass and laughed. Okay, Uncle, I toast to you. Ethan also raised his glass. The two clinked glasses and drank it all in one go. Ethan had just put down his glass when his phone suddenly rang. He took out his phone to check, a look of surprise appearing on his face. It was actually a call from Big Ed. This burly man, nicknamed Big Ed, was a capable lieutenant under Victor the Reaper Vane. Calling at night definitely meant something was up. A bad feeling rose in Ethan's heart, and he answered the phone immediately. Hello, Ed, it's me. What's up? Boss Vane is down. He's been hit.